and I will, and then we should be good. You're checking sound too,
Yeah,
Macho?
yeah, I got you on sound. Got you on sound.
Cool.
Gotta make sure this dork over here actually also talks to Walt.
Yeah, I'm waiting for you to let me know when you're gonna check the sound, because there's a delay always.
I'm checking right now, mofo. So go for it. Talk.
All
Dance,
right,
monkey,
I am
dance.
talking. Yeah, yeah. Shut up. I'm talking, and I am here, and we are all here, and it's been a while, so I feel right at home right here.
Yeah, you
I
got the
felt
crust out
good.
of everywhere. You good?
Yeah, yeah. It was it's too early for this shit.
I was to say, this is the
Man,
first time you've been on the podcast in like fucking 4 weeks.
it's been a month, man. It's been a I've been working every single weekend, but now I was able to get a job that actually I'll get weekends off, so the podcast will I'll be able to do it whenever.
Cool. Um,
All right, we sound good. BG, you're the last one, and I'm sure your mic is good to go though.
Yo, mic check.
Give us the cue, Macho. Don't die.
We're good to go.
cool.
There we
All
go.
right.
Everything sounds good, man. You're good.
All right. Guys, welcome to DualShock and Sense episode 99. Very special episode. We have I feel like a legend in our community. But first let me introduce our panel. We have Macho here. How you doing, man? What's going on?
Everything's good, man. It's been a great week. Beautiful weather here up here in New York. We're enjoying that and ready to get started on this podcast, man. It's gonna be a good one.
Yes, sir. And rounding out the rest of the DualShock and Sense usual suspects, we have Walt making his return. He finally found his way home from the strip club. What's going on, man?
It was a long and arduous road, but finally I was able to hitchhike, and they treated me nice. Only had to sell one kidney, the only one I have. So
It was
here
a
we are,
long
man.
trek from Weenie Hut Jr.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I'm a goofy goober officially, and
Okay.
you know, and I stopped by the hard bar. I took a bowl of nails without milk. So here we are.
And then, of course, as I alluded to earlier, we do have a special guest. Joining us for the first time is Broken Games HD. How you doing, man? What's going
Yo, I'm good, man. Nice Saturday morning. Definitely not a legend. Just
on?
just a nobody who plays games, you know. But good to be on. Appreciate the invite. Good
Yeah, of
topics this
course.
week, I think.
For sure, for sure. I think you're underestimating yourself, man, because I feel like
I ain't
I
nobody.
I feel like I got to like the connections that I've made and like knowing all the people in the community really started with like weapon wheels. So like I don't know, man. Like I feel like you've done that at least. So
Okay.
yeah,
I'll,
I
I'll
gotta give
take
you
some
that
credit.
for sure, for sure.
Yeah, no, we'll give you you flowers on this one, man. Because I mean, a little bit of background. I was a writer for Broken Games HDR's website for Open Wheel, way back when, which led me to all the connections with Iron Lords and just this whole community. So really big shouts to you, man. I a little bit of I guess a fanboy here. I've been like following his content for like, oh man, Uncharted 3 multiplayer days.
Mm.
So way back when, and just been a follower of the channel ever since, man. Like I say, you're a legend of the community and an icon. So we're gonna give you the flowers on this podcast, man, for sure.
All right.
Um, yeah. So like I said, yeah, we have some good topics today to get through. Before we do that, we're gonna talk about the games that we've been playing. Um, I'm going to assume that everyone's been playing Tears of the Kingdom. BG, have you been playing that too, or no?
Nah, I'm not really a current Zelda fan, so I don't know. Like I've never like been a big Zelda fan. I have beaten like two of the games.
Okay.
and I don't like this, the Breath of the Wild and that style of Zelda that they've created.
Yeah.
They make like 2 games and then they kinda reset and do something different with Zelda. It is
Yeah.
possible that the next one they make, I get into that one, but I just don't like their how they design their game and their world where they just it's just like you wake up in this tomb or whatever, and it's just go do random it's not random stuff, but I like, I just like my games to have more of a goal and like a specific mission. Like I know what I'm doing this for. And I feel like Zelda is kind of just like that. It's very much like a freedom. They give you that freedom to just kind of do whatever. And I like my games a little bit more structured, like I like a little bit more of that structure and that goal oriented game.
Yeah, that's totally fair. So you're more into like the classic Zelda games instead of these new ones.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Um, so yeah, before we kind of give, because I know I'm guessing Walt and Macho have been playing it, so we'll give you guys the floor to talk about that. I'll knock out my what I've been playing for these past 2 weeks really quickly because it's been a lot. I've been actually beating games. So first things first, I played an actual good arcane game this past week and finished it. That
Do
was
tell, do
Dishonored.
tell.
Yeah, Dishonored 1, man. Finally finished that. Dishonored 2 is far better just in terms of like levels. The later half of Dishonored 1 is a little weak. Like the final mission is like it's like this giant lighthouse that you have to scale, get to the top to rescue Emily. But it's just like a really linear level. It's not as free and open and allows you to kind of tackle things the way that you want to, like the other levels kind of did. So I was kind of disappointed by that, but still really enjoyed Dishonored. Really fun time. So yeah, finished that.
What did you think of
Also
the
finished.
story, real quick? Because I played it when it first came out, and I thought it was really good, but I'm
Yeah,
whatever.
I was surprised that I felt myself like really aligned with Corvo's motivation. Like towards the end of the game, when like Emily gets kind of like kidnapped, like I felt it too, like wanting to like really save her as well. So, yeah, I thought they did a good job of like making me like want to actually protect this character. Because like in those situations, I usually don't care. It's a kid, they get taken. It's like okay, whatever. Like I'm just playing the game at that point to get to her. But I actually felt like a connection and like a desire to actually go and get her back. So I thought that was cool. Um, yeah, so Dishonored, finished that. Horizon Forbidden West, Burning Shores, knocked that one out as well. Um, yeah, just really really solid, man. Horizon gameplay. We talked about it with Eric on the last podcast, but it's just like after being away from that game for so long, 'cause you forget just like how fun that gameplay is. Especially on hard mode, because it's just like me using like everything in my arsenal, and it's just like it really kind of kicks your ass too at the same time. Like especially, I don't know if anyone else has played Burning Shores, but the new kind of like frog machine is like that thing sucks to to fight against, man. It's really tough. But yeah, I really enjoyed the story this time around. I think the villain is like he's pretty like nasty in just like the thing that he's doing, and he's actually like he's like by far the most interesting Zenith, uh, including the ones that we met in the main game. I really really liked his story, who he is, what he's trying to do with like the people in the current timeline. It's some really creepy, like weirdo kind of stuff, but it really worked. And then,
He's portrayed by your favorite actor.
oh, Days Gone, dude. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, man.
yeah. Um, and I don't know if you guys have seen clips of the final boss fight.
I have,
But
yeah, yeah. I know.
I
BG
haven't.
played it, right?
Yeah, I beat it already. Yeah, it's probably the best fight in the entire game, like including the base game.
yeah, for sure. And like I feel like that gives you a little bit of a glimpse of like what like next gen can be, like games that aren't, being held back by like PS4 and prior consoles, because like that thing is like it's like the definition of like a spectacle, man. Just like seeing that horse machine moving around, like each of its like like little tentacle arms, just like going across the landscape. Like it is wild, man. That final fight. Um,
Is it what do you fight what are those things called? The destructive things that you see dormant. Is that what you fight?
No,
uh,
it's well,
Like the big.
it's like the mothership of that, pretty
right,
much. Yeah,
right,
Oh, okay. Oh, so it's like the big one, like the
yeah, the really
main.
big one. Yeah,
Oh wow. Whoa.
yeah. So yeah, it was really
That's some
cool.
Returnal shit. That's like that third. What is it? The third boss fight in Returnal. That's just a spectacle. With
hmm
the floating heads. Man.
Nemesis. Um, but yeah, I really enjoyed that final fight. It feels like a goddamn like how do I say this? Like it is a journey to actually like put that thing down. Like it's not easy. Like there's multiple stages, multiple things that you have to do. And yeah, it feels earned when you actually like put that thing down. So yeah,
Is it like
really.
fighting Kronos in God of War 3? Like, did it feel like a true
I mean,
like
not
you?
not on that scale, but
it's
it's
like
it's
yeah,
good.
there's multiple steps to doing it. Yeah,
Right.
almost like that.
Mm,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Um, but yeah, really, really cool fight. Really, really good DLC, man. For $20, I feel like you can't go wrong with that. And then I also
Are
like what?
question for you, so because I have no idea about this DLC. I haven't even like purchased it. Does it dive more into what Forbidden West left off on?
Well, I was literally just about to say that is that I don't know if you guys played Frozen Wilds back in the day, but like that was I personally hate DLC that takes place like in the middle of the game or whatever. But with Burning Shores, it's like it feels like an epilogue, and I really like that. It's like kind of going off of where Forbidden West ended, and it teases a little bit of like what's to come. So I think that's a really smart decision that they didn't do that classic thing of like, hey, this takes place before the final mission in Forbidden West, right? Like it
Yeah.
almost feels inconsequential when they do that. So I like that this definitely felt like an epilogue. um, yeah, and there's some silence moments too. So
We're
yeah,
going to space, Soul. We're going to space.
man, I hope, man, I hope.
Man, I mean that's that would be amazing. So there is talks about Nemesis and all that at the end. Like they still
Yeah,
allude to it.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
a lot.
So
Yeah. So finished Burning Shores, and then just randomly, for no reason at all, I played and finished Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
whoa.
For absolutely
See,
no
you always
reason
are doing
whatsoever.
you
Absolutely
he's
no
always
reason.
doing the most random like he'll go and like, yeah, I'm playing all these games that you would expect me to play and then I just play
No,
concretely.
I
I'm
saw him
like,
on his
what?
I saw him on his PSN status. He got FOMO, and then he realized
I ain't
he bought
following.
it for.
Listen, listen.
He's
That
been
thing, that
stalking.
thing, that thing was $5 on PSN. I would not have bought that game if it wasn't. So let me just
Man.
say that.
Wow.
But do you guys remember when I first played it? I said I didn't like it, and I legit put it down after like an hour or whatever.
I think so.
Um, so yeah,
Yeah,
so
I got pissed. I was like, what the fuck, dude? It's like it's a good game.
Yeah, but
so
the whole
yeah,
backtracking and like traveling, there is a
yeah.
tedium to it.
I think the exploration kind of sucks in that game. Like I don't care. Like like other open world games, like you actually want to explore to find like cool gear and things to upgrade. Your weapons and whatnot. But it's like here, it's like I don't care about getting ponchos to be honest. So
People
like
somehow are crazy for them, so
yeah, I really did not care about the exploration because like the incentive wasn't there for me. Um,
mhm.
I didn't find the platforming like that fun either. So like I don't know how you guys felt about the combat in general. Like there are times when because like I played it on the difficulty under I think Jedi Masters is the hardest one. But there are times when like you're fighting against the purge troopers and it's just like what I imagine Sekiro is, where it's just like you're going back and forth, blocking attacks, and then your enemy blocks an attack, and then you get one hit in, and then they get one hit, and it feels like a back and forth duel, right? Those are the moments when like the combat feels really, really good, but then there's other times where I'm just like, man, the movement just doesn't feel like quite right. Does it feel as fluid as like a Neo or something like that as I would want it to be? So like, I don't know. How do you guys feel about the combat in general? Do you guys like that it's more like Soulsy, or would you have preferred it to be just like the ultimate power fantasy like Force Unleashed was back in the day?
I mean, Macho. I didn't beat the game, but I played enough to where the combat I felt. I don't mind Soulsy combat. uh, it's just when it doesn't feel meaningful. It's like when I remember when Macho compared Sifu's punches to like what is it, punching a wet blanket? It's
It's
like when
no,
it
it
feels that.
sounds like a wet blanket. It feels great in the game, but it
Yeah,
sounds
no, but
bad.
in hindsight, like I would see the trailer and it would not look appealing, and it didn't feel impactful. But then you play it, it does feel. I don't think in Fallen Order it feels that way. I think it just feels like you could just go through the enemy. I think in difference to Sekiro, Sekiro does the clashing and the parrying does feel a lot more exciting and a lot more meaningful because every single time you do block, there is meaningful damage and meaningful like progress through the boss fight or just normal fights. I'd say that Fallen Order I played right after Sekiro, so it just fell short for me because I was like off the oh man, this is the best action game I've ever played. And then I played Fallen Order and I was like, "Oh, yeah, I mean, it's a Star Wars game, which that's what the biggest thing I had going for it, and I like Cal as a protagonist and as like a part of the Star Wars universe. But I didn't really go through the whole way. I like the villain and the what was it, the Inquisitors? That's really cool. But I don't know, man. I gotta go back to it with the PS5 upgrade because I know there's a free upgrade for that. But
BG, what do you
Macho,
think of the combat?
So you're talking about Survivor or Fallen Order?
Fallen
Fallen
Order.
Order.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Fallen. It was like they adapted that the Souls style loosely, but the controls weren't tight enough,
Yeah,
right? Like he felt very loose to control. Like versus Sekiro, everything felt tight and precise.
yeah,
And I
I
haven't
agree.
played. I've been waiting on a few patches before I started Survivor, but I don't know. Just looking at it, it still seems like it's a kind of loose, but they might have refined it a bit. But yeah, like I didn't like sometimes it just felt like a little janky in a way. Whereas Sekiro, when you got the rhythm down properly, you you kind of you knew the timing perfectly of the parry, and like you kind of just understood like if you missed a parry, you felt like it was just on your timing because of you. But with Fallen Order, it kind of feels like it's so random sometimes, and just not as precise with the movement and the combat. It doesn't like sometimes it doesn't free flow accurately, in and out of combat and between different enemies as like just cleanly. So, but I liked it, but yeah, they definitely needed to refine it. So I'm gonna see how it is in Survivor.
yeah.
Yeah,
I hope that they
I'm
made
with
it.
I'm
Oh,
with
God.
BG. I'm with BG on that actually. Because I mean, you played on PS5, right? So it had the
Yeah,
PS5 update. Was it 60 FPS?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So when I played on PS4, it was at 30, and that was rough, man. Like respawn, the launch for Fallen Order was not clean at all. So when I played it at launch, like you felt those dips, and it did feel a little clunky, and it's weird. It was like if they try to make an Uncharted game, but with melee combat or sword combat, and that's what it felt like a lot of the times. And again, not everything was super precise, but man, when things hit, like it hit. Like as far as like blocking the blasters, or there's certain moments when fighting like the huge toad, and then whenever you're able to parry it, and it did. I agree with BG that it feels like random sometimes. Like oh I got it, but when you got it, man, like it felt so good to just wail on that thing. And boss fights are just incredible for that one. It's just like it's like the ultimate dream after Star Wars Episode 3, the based off the movie, the game on PS2. That was like the pinnacle of like lightsaber combat back in the day. And then the Force Unleashed released, and that was the best one. Now I think Fallen Order is like, and Survivor now are kind of like following its footsteps really greatly. So I want to see what Survivor plays like, but yeah, I'm waiting on a patch 2 before I dive into that.
yeah. They should have patched Fallen Order on PS5 a little bit more because that thing is still that thing is still a little busted. I'm not gonna lie. Like
Damn.
I cannot tell you. Yeah, I cannot tell you how many times the platforming just like doesn't work in that game sometimes. Um, and the frame rate can kind of be a little hit and miss. Um, but and then yeah, and then last thing I'll talk about is like I finished that game like maybe a week ago, and I cannot tell you anything that happened in that story, which I think will be the opposite problem in Survivor because like I watched like all the cutscenes for that game,
That's
and
wild to me, dog. I think Fallen Order's story is so damn good, and the
Are
characters are
you
no,
a Star
great.
Wars fan though?
not really.
That's probably why.
Yeah,
Yeah, but so like what I'm saying is that like I think the characters by far like the most memorable part about that game, but it's like the actual thing about like going in the tombs or like why we're doing that and like some of like the major beats of that game story wise, like I don't I didn't care about like a lot of that stuff, man. It was like the characters that like I thought were like the most interesting stuff about that game, like Seer's story and how that related to Trila, her apprentice, right?
that's fair.
And
That's
how,
fair.
yeah, like that stuff was more interesting. Um, but yeah, in general, I really enjoyed the game though. Liked it enough to finish it. So
But that ending though with Darth Vader,
oh
that
yeah,
was. I'm not gonna lie, man. That when that music started playing from Episode 3, um,
yeah.
man, just chills down my spine. And you see Darth Vader just kind of forming from the back of all the mist and everything. You hear the breathing. Oh man, top Star Wars moment of all time for sure.
Then that's kind of like in the same vein. Like, I don't know if that's a good. I mean, it's good that that it's a it's an important moment and it's a memorable part for you. But I don't know if every game that is tied to this to like big property should rely on just on already established characters and not create their own. Because I think they did a good job with Cal and making you excited for like Survivor and Cal being back because he was first introduced in Fallen Order. I just hope that Survivor I don't know much about, but I hope this one doesn't rely too much on old Star Wars to kind of feel exciting.
Well, that's
All
why.
I've
Well, to be fair, the entire game is like all the characters are great, and the setup is awesome.
okay.
It's just like the last. It's literally like the last 10% of the game, if that, and that's because at that point in that universe, that timeline, is when Darth Vader's hunting Jedi.
Oh, it's kind of like the same feeling you get when you watch Rogue One and you see that ending scene.
Yep,
You're like,
the exact
this
same
is
thing.
episode 4.
The exact same
Oh,
thing. Yep.
And
okay.
they handled it really well because it's like if they had, which I'm sure probably a lot of people wanted to actually fight Vader in that last scene, but it's like, come on,
And
like
die.
Cal, yeah, he's gonna die if he goes up against Vader. So I
Yeah,
think they
can't
handled it
fight
really
Vader.
well, where they're
Hmm.
like, let's just have it be like a horror scene where you're actually like running away from Vader. I thought that was like a really smart decision.
Yeah.
Um, and see, when you brought up the ending, I thought you were gonna bring up like literally the ending cutscene when they decide not to like find all the force sensitive kids and whatever. And I was like, man, I thought that was like a really cool way to end it. But then like I was watching someone's like retrospective on Fallen Order, and they were like, well, now that decision basically renders like the entire game like inconsequential or like pointless because that was like literally the whole goal of the game, and then like you destroy it at the end. So it's like everything we did like in this entire game now it's just like, like what was the point, Um, so yeah, I don't know. I found that kind of interesting, but I still like the decision at the end though.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, it's kind of like you could argue that Rogue One, the whole movie was kind of in a way unnecessary because you already know that they get to, destroy the Death Star. But this is just showing you how it happened and how they were able to do it. And I think that sometimes you need that middle between point A and point B to kind of like get some context, even if you don't, the main purpose or main objective of the protagonist wasn't fulfilled. I just think it's really cool how if there's a mission that tells you, oh yeah, no, you're gonna have to save these kids from, from danger because they're the last, they're part of the Jedi's or they're whatever. You're like, oh, you know what happens, but you want to see it through. You want to see how every character interacts with each other. I don't know. It's cool. Haven't seen a lot of Star Wars, but what I have seen, I think Fallen Order does it pretty good,
Yeah, a
and
lot of
Survivor
people
I
are on.
doing better.
Are, yeah, a lot of people are just uncomfortable when the game sets you out on a goal, and they feel like it's a waste when you don't get that goal. And I don't necessarily agree with that, because
Yeah.
it's. I think the journey is way more important than the ending.
Yeah,
Um,
that One
Fair.
Piece
and yeah,
model. Yeah,
like
for sure.
especially if you playing Star Wars, if you're playing a Star Wars game and you've watched and you kind of like go into the weeds of everything that happens, you know what's gonna happen. I mean, because Darth Vader and the Inquisitors and everybody with the Republic or whatever, like after Order 66,
66.
they end up like hunting and killing like the mass majority of Jedi. There's a list of Jedi who survived Order 66. Like you can find it on YouTube. A lot of people made a video about it, but it's most of them have died. So
Yeah.
it's like you kind of know the outcome, and especially since there's we know what happens to way in the future. So it's like, bruh,
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
And
I think it's interesting that like because a lot of people feel that way with like The Last of Us Part Two, and like I didn't like I liked the fact
hmm
that Ellie didn't get her revenge on Abby. So it's interesting that like I felt the opposite with Part Two, and with Fallen Order. It's like, oh yeah, maybe they do have a point with that. But
Yep.
yeah, that was Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Finished that. And then last thing, I've been playing like literally nonstop Wasteland 3. Um this is in Exile, which low key, man, low key, this may be Xbox's hidden gem of a studio, man.
Oh,
This game
brother, here we go again.
Bro, this guy
uh
stinks.
this game no, but no lie, like this game is like fucking awesome, man.
Is that like the turn-based one?
It's a like a CRPG, like
Okay.
Divinity.
Yeah, I was gonna say when you said Wasteland, I'm like, oh, I see why.
Yeah,
I
man,
see why he's interested.
you know the vibes. But yeah, man, it's hilarious. It's probably the funniest game I've ever played. Um,
Mm.
it takes place in like Colorado, so like everyone has that like, or most people have that like very like thick, long, drawn out like country accent. It's just hilarious hearing these people talk like that. But yeah, it's really really great, man. I have like 24 hours into it, and I just downloaded it like a couple days ago. Yeah, I'm like obsessed with it. Um, so yeah, that's what I've been playing for these past 2 weeks. BG, what about you, man? What have you been up to lately in terms of games that you've been playing?
I've been playing Advance Wars. I'm literally on the very last boss fight. So after that, it's complete. And then I've also been playing Hogwarts. I typically only like to play one game at a time, max two. So I've been playing the Advance Wars and Hogwarts. Hogwarts, I think I'm like 60% through the game. Been enjoying it. I waited with games like this where it's like I know it's gonna take a while to beat probably. I think it's like 30, 40 hours on average, something like that. But when it
Yeah,
comes out at a time where I know I'm gonna be playing something else, I'm like, I'm gonna wait. Probably needs a few patches anyway. So I've been getting through it, enjoying it. I think the combat's good. I really like, the combat system, just juggling enemies and using a whole bunch of different spells on them. It's very much like the other kind of like action adventure games we play where there's like a crazy combat system, except you're just doing this one with a wand and is and the moves are just spells instead. So same thing. I'm not a Harry Potter fan. Like I don't really care about the story or the IP. I'm still paying attention to this story, and it's serviceable. Like I said, I'm not into the whole just the lore of Harry Potter and everything like that. But to me, that's not necessarily important. I can play a whole bunch of IPs that I don't care about as long as the gameplay is good. And the game looks great. Like I think it's might be top five games this generation visually, top three maybe.
Oh wow.
Surprisingly, right?
Uh, yeah, yeah. This is probably like, especially on PC. I haven't, but on consoles, it seems to looks really, really good on console too. But yeah, this is like top three, top five visually so far this generation.
Nice,
Wow.
nice. Yeah, Macho, do you agree with that?
Hell yeah, man! Like I again, I sung this game's praises when it first came out because opposed to BG, I am a huge Harry Potter fan and more my wife than myself. But I did read the books, I watched the movies, so yeah, I consider me a fan in that retrospect. But yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest home run for that entire game, looking back on it and actually getting the platinum trophy for it, was a castle. You know,
Yeah.
um,
Mhm.
and I was just I don't know about you, BG, but I feel like the open world esque part of it, like outside the castle, is almost as impressive as the castle itself.
Yeah, some people said that they weren't really blown away by like outside of Hogsmeade and Wart, that land, like that open land outside of that. I'm like,
Yeah,
maybe I don't have like the comparison of what I think it should be because I'm not a Harry Potter fan. But I don't know. Like the most important thing is clearly Hogwarts and Hogsmeade. So I don't know what they really wanted outside of that or expected. Maybe it could be more, but there's nothing like particular that I noticed. I'm like, oh, this is missing hair on the outskirts or something like that. I think it's fine.
yeah. I mean, like to be fair, even in the books and the movies, there's nothing really venturing outside those two locations. It's very
Hmm.
familiar territory when it comes to everything else. So that's why I was just really impressed that not only were they able to add just a little bit, but they added so much to it. Where I'm to the point, I was just like, they had a whole bunch of ideas to flesh out more of just the area around Hogwarts. I was really impressed by that, especially with the Forbidden Forest. Like that alone felt like another character in itself. A little more, a little less, bare bones compared to the actual castle. But other than that, yeah, it was awesome game. I loved it.
So yeah, is that was that it for you in terms of games that you've been playing?
For me, yeah, and Advance Wars is just it's the remake, master, whatever they want to call it. Played it when I was a kid. I love strategy games, so um, yeah, I've been loving it. After this, after I beat these two, I plan to play that this game that came out last year, Have a Nice. I think it was last year. Have a Nice Death. It was in like early access. It's an indie game. It looks really cool, and I'm not playing no indie game in early access, so I'll wait till the full release is out, and the full release is done. Um, and there was something else. What am I playing? There was something else I'm playing after this. Does anything else come out this month? Major? I can't remember. But I think that's it.
Besides Redfall,
Oh yeah, definitely not that.
you didn't try it?
I did. I did. I tried it for an hour. I knew what that was. So
Okay. Um. All right. Macho, Walt, do you guys want to talk about Zelda, or have you guys been playing anything else, or has it just been Zelda?
I mean, Macho and I have continued our Strangers of Paradise journey.
Okay.
Yeah,
Let
Absolutely
me
we
love it.
let me grab
we
the pillow.
yeah. Let me get you a nice hot chockey to go with that too, bum ass. Um, yeah,
Dude, that
str-
game is so good.
yeah. Honestly, we went hardcore. Well, that Saturday and Sunday night.
Saturday we did like what, like 3 straight hours of nonstop missions, and oh man, that it's so much fun, man. It's definitely we both paid like 15 bucks for it, and it's worth every penny. But we talked that like I'm willing to pay like a $50, like even probably full price for it. It's just that now it's better. I think they optimized it a bit more, and there's a lot of
Oh
features
yeah,
that they added with time.
yeah, for
It
sure.
still looks like ass in a lot of moments. The what's it called? Macho. The thing it does, the
The
where on the
anti-aliasing,
edges.
it's
The
horrible.
anti-alias.
It's
It's
horrible.
trash. Um, but we've been playing that. Macho, he's played a bit more of other stuff than me. I
Yeah.
played Tears of the Kingdom, but he's further than I am. I literally just started. I'm like maybe like 30 minutes to 40 minutes in. I already like did the beginning part of it, like the cutscene, whatever. Um, it's just yesterday a lot of stuff came up and I couldn't really get into it. But I mean, Macho wants to talk more about it without really spoiling, I guess.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you right now, Link dies. So,
Okay.
spoiler. No, I mean,
To be fair, he does die in some Zeldas. He does like, I think in Majora's Mask, he does actually like fall through the well, or like well, he's like dead, or I don't know. Continue.
sure. Yeah, I mean, it's whatever weird construct that this series has for death. I'm sure it happens multiple times. But yeah, no, so this week was Stranger Paradise. I actually ended up being Octopath Traveler 2, which is a great classic JRPG. That last boss fight was, man, I had to go see Guardians of the Galaxy that same day when I was fighting that last boss. I had to go to that movie mad as fuck, bro, because
Oh man,
that boss fight was something else. And thankfully, Guardians 3 was an amazing movie that like I came back. I was like, all right, I feel uplifted and I feel hopeful now. And I kicked that boss's ass and I beat the game. But yeah, it was good, really really good. It's like a great first like a baby JRPG rather, because it's very convenient. It's very intuitive. It's just good stories overall. Nothing much to say other than what's been said before, but yeah, it's good. Been diving back into actually Kingdom Hearts Final Mix because I needed something to play this week other than buying a new game. I was very close to buying Survivor, but I decided to jump back into Kingdom Hearts, get that platinum trophy so that I can get my 99th platinum trophy. I've been working towards that all week, and it's been, man, how unfun it is to collect goddamn synthesis materials in that game. But regardless, we're still gonna power through that, and the biggest headliner, obviously, is Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom, which I poured about 2-ish to 3 hours, so not really too much into it. It's hilarious, BG, because I seen your tweets before about people says this game's gonna change their lives. I'm really scrolling through the timeline this morning. It's only been out for a day.
People are saying that?
I shout out to Mighty Keep. That man's like, this is one of the best games I ever played. I'm just like, dog. And I love Mighty Keep, but man, I can tell it's like it's already getting people in their feelings already, dog.
I don't know what it is about Zelda that just makes people absolutely goddamn say like the most like out of pocket things, man.
I don't know. Saving the blonde white girl is apparently like the coolest thing in town, bro.
it's like saying that All Stars. What's the Destruction All Stars? Is a good multiplayer game.
Oh yeah. It's like saying that's like a good game. Yeah, that's wild.
Bro, I stand by it.
Yeah, right. Man.
But other than that, yeah, Zelda is it's going the distance, man. I would say like the one thing that's like really impressive from my first couple of hours is the story structure of it. I mean, it's more or less like the same, but since I actually know the background of what happened in Breath of the Wild, it's making this story a lot more interesting to me as far as like where things are progressing and who this new Sky. I'm calling Sky people. I'm not gonna spoil what it is, but who these Sky people are. It really kicks off running with like kind of giving background lore to what Link's exploring, because you really start out like right in like the sky and stuff like that, so it gets going pretty quickly. But as far, I think, again, the most impressive thing is the mechanics of the game, man. It was what I've been really excited for and why I held off on playing Breath of the Wild or like rushing through that game. It's because I had a feeling that it was gonna be treading the same ground, right? And we got a sense of that from the trailers, and that Tears of the Kingdom was just going to be an expanded version of that. And I'm really glad I held off, because I probably would have felt burnt out jumping to Tears of the Kingdom, because it is more or less the same. Where you are not aimlessly exploring, like you have a goal and objective, you have like you do have like a quest log, but in this sense you are, like BG said before, like you just jump into the world and like you just go and explore. And sometimes you get distracted, sometimes you need to go collect materials. Within the first couple of hours, though, you are getting the powers pretty quickly. I already have Fuse and what's the other one? It's the Fuse and basically the hand power, like just to move the Ultra Hand. This is where you can move objects and stuff like that. So I already started making boats, started making movable carts with the fans on the back and stuff like that. So it's cool to kind of like see like these things in the background, to see not only can you like climb that mountain or that tree or chop down the tree, whatever, but like you can start grabbing relic parts around the area and fusing them together to make a boat, to make a mine cart, to go up this ramp that you obviously can't walk up across. So it's a really
Make
like
a
filling.
cardboard man with huge.
Stop it! Stop it! Stop! I know what you're referring to, you sick freak.
It's not me. It's the Nintendo fans, man. I don't know,
Man, yeah, they're going
First
wild.
thing they want to do.
Number one, stink at a line. Number two, let's make this cardboard.
Yeah, and that's wild. It's funny because I saw that and
y'all
some
out
people
here-
just flying off of the cart. It's hilarious, dude.
Y'all out here playing Bob the Builder. That's wild, man.
Listen, listen. When you put it in that context, I feel silly for even getting the game, man. No, but it's
man.
but overall, just the ingenuity. Like again, it's literally it feels like they're throwing you into the box, but you're not confined by the walls. Like you're able to do whatever in that box of Legos, and it's
Still talking
daunting.
about a video game.
Yeah, dude.
My man is Aristotle suddenly.
This is what I'm
Schrodinger's
saying,
cat.
man.
I'm just talking about Schrodinger's cat over here. Like
it's so funny because we're clowning Soul for playing Dreams and loving the hell out of that game. So,
Yeah, but
oh,
you
man.
never heard me talk about dreams with like fucking philosophy and being
Well,
like,
you brought up. Listen, we're clowns. We brought up Persona 6 and saying, no, it's green. Maybe something with Earth and life, and maybe it's
That's
white.
that's a different thing, man. That's a different
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
I'm sure
But
it
I
is.
will say, Macho. I mean, it's to your point of the quest log. I don't. It's like BG mentioned. Like Breath of the Wild, although it's not structured, it's how you say. You do have objectives. It's just that you're not punished for straying, whereas structured games have invisible walls or they have limited scope to explore, and maybe you can't access it because you haven't completed this dungeon. In this case, you can do whatever. It's like in Breath of the Wild, you had the plateau where you got all the powers, and then you were free to explore. Well, I will say, I wonder if it's just it takes longer to beat the game right out. I mean, more people are gonna do speed runs, but it's impressive that in 94 minutes, like I would have expected it to be less, but maybe there's just more to do from point A to point B, which is just the last thing to do. Because I know a lot of people went from the Great Plateau in Breath of the Wild straight to Calamity Ganon, which is not advised because it's a very difficult fight, but some people did it. So I wonder how. I mean, I have no idea about the final sequence of this game, and I'm excited to find out more.
I mean, I assume it's because the quest that I'm in right now is you have to go to 3 separate dungeons that are across the Sky Islands, and obviously the whole chunk of that is figuring out how to get to point A to point B and C. But once you actually get into the dungeons, it's pretty bare bones right now. Obviously, it's not like super intricate because the point of these dungeons are really to introduce you to your powers. So that's why I
So they're
assume
not
that
like the
it's
Divine
90
Beast
minutes.
yet. You're not like in a dungeon that's like Divine Beast level.
No. It's pure.
okay.
It's pure introduction. Pretty simple and easy puzzles, but it's the point of it so that you can get your powers.
So you're in shrines.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because in Breath of the Wild you did have the shrine, but you also had the Divine Beast, which served as the traditional dungeon. Which I will say, to BG's point of like past games having like the formula that they have, Breath of the Wild, as much as I love it, does not compare with a dungeon from like Twilight Princess, where I think like has some of the best dungeons in a Zelda game, or an Ocarina where it has some of the best story structure. Uh, I think this is the first time that Nintendo is experimenting with open worldness, and I hope they do it more with like Mario and whatnot, like they did with Bowser's Fury and whatnot.
Yeah, it's more of like instead of telling you how to play, it's sort of you just figuring it out. So you're getting your powers throughout these 3 temples. I got to 2 already, and now I'm going to the 3rd one. And the 3rd one is placed like in a snowy plain. So obviously you need to adjust yourself for the weather, right? So eating meals that have the fiery peppers or whatever, or dressing
Yeah, a lot of
appropriately
meat.
and stuff like that. Say what?
Yeah.
What?
No, bro, like hot meat, like stew and stuff.
Hot.
What?
Man.
Do you want the what? We always talking about meat. I said peppers. You sick freak.
I say it, peppers and meat, and you make like a stew and stuff. Hot. Shut up. And continue.
Yeah. Close that mouth, bro. Um, but yeah, no. So just making my way through that, it's a lot of fun. I would say again, I can't say like it's the best game ever, baby. I can't say anything like that because obviously I've been a couple hours into it. But I would say as far as ingenuity of it, it's really impressive. But yeah, looking forward to playing more today, and maybe some Diablo 4 if we sneak that in. But yeah, that's all I've been playing.
Nice. Yeah. That's this is what happens when platforms release, must-have games, So yeah,
Damn.
good for Nintendo, man.
Those
And
reviews are
that fanbase.
crazy though, man. The reviews for Zelda
I mean,
are
were we surprised though?
no.
Nope. Yeah, I wasn't surprised. I mean, come on.
But sometimes you do have the Last of Us effect, where like a sequel will be incredibly controversial, and it'll still maybe objectively be good, but then you have review bombing. But no, Nintendo's continues to be that, quote unquote sweetheart for a lot of people, and they're just like, no, my God, they cannot do any wrong. I mean, to be fair, Nintendo figured out how to make fun games in a lot of aspects, but I mean, it's Zelda. Like, what are you? Link's Awakening
Yeah, I mean,
did well.
out of like 68 or 69 reviews, you look at Metacritic, that green bar is shot, man. Like it's all the way up there.
Yeah,
And then you have that one reviewer from I think G
that's
Infinity that has like a 6 out of 10. But he actually,
it's not a
or
bad review.
yeah, they actually did a really good job with that review. It's like the criticisms are laid out very cleanly, and it was a well
And
written
what
review.
sucks, and what sucks is that probably he's gonna have people coming after him for that review. So
Yeah, man, I'm sure he's fine. He's probably getting a buttload in his paycheck for
there you go.
all the views coming to that site now. So, shouts to him.
Mm, for sure, for sure.
Sir.
Cool. So before we actually move on to some of these topics, want to remind everyone to go ahead and like the podcast. Consider subscribing, man. We would greatly appreciate it. Thanks to the 13 people who are currently watching, man. And the couple subscribers that we got as well. We really appreciate that. Um, BG, we wanted to ask you, in terms of like multiplayer games that you've played, like in your sort of like gaming history, like what is the one that you think is like at the top of the list? Like, what's your favorite multiplayer game of all time?
Oh, of all time, it's definitely SOCOM 2.
Ooh, okay.
Um like I was actually playing like SOCOM 2 well after well after the PS3 was out.
Okay.
Um because I like I played SOCOM 2 from when I was in middle school to I think even my first year of college it might have been.
Damn.
Like that's the longest time, and that's when the servers were the only people on the servers were like the diehard, the most diehard of people who absolutely loved it. So that's the longest time I ever played any multiplayer game because I think that game is just one of the greatest games, ever made in general to me. Um, so that's at the top of my list. Just love SOCOM. It's like kind of shaped how how I like my multiplayer games and what I look for in multiplayer games. Um, but after that, it would be games like Uncharted 2. Um, of course, I played Factions. I just like games. I like multiplayer games that it comes down to like actual skill and gunplay first.
Yeah.
It's I don't like the stuff like I like abilities and perks and all this extra stuff too. But that's supposed to be like additional stuff. It's supposed to be complementary. It's not supposed to be able to, in my opinion, be able to like win matches and or win gunfights for you. That goes against my whole philosophy of how multiplayer games supposed to be. Those are just supposed to be like assists,
Yeah.
you know. So that's what I usually like in my multiplayer games. Something that's just very gunplay focused, aim focused, skill. It's actually skill based at the core of the mechanics. So yeah, I mean, and that's why I do like PlayStation's multiplayer because I do think they're like unique IPs, and that's why I do want them to come back, and that's why I'm for the games as a service, live service stuff because I do think, regardless or not, if people actually think they're good or going to be successful, I think they're unique. There's not really much else, especially now. You can make the argument that like maybe the kill zone resistances and stuff like that wasn't unique when it came out, but it's definitely unique now. You can't find any other games that really play like those games, like SOCOM, Resistance, Killzone. There's no games that play like those anymore. So,
Yeah.
and that's unfortunate. So yeah, what are the multiplayer games that I loved? Uh, there's been others, but
I know
those are
you,
the
I know you
quick
played
ones.
Marvel's Capcom Infinite for a bit, right? Like, did you get into that?
Yeah, I really like the tag games, right? I don't play all the fighting games. Like I love watching Street Fighter. Like I is like I have a lot of knowledge on Street Fighter, but I don't play it. It's because I watch like every tournament. I follow all the the people in the FGC. Everything they post online, all the tournaments that they post on YouTube, on Twitch. I like watch all of it. I listen to the commentary. I know everything, but I don't play it because I just don't like the gameplay necessarily. I like tag fighters. But unfortunately, tag fighters, yeah, I didn't get into DBZ because I'm not really a DBZ guy like that in the first place.
Yeah, I know you get some
Um,
flack for that from your WP
yeah,
members. I'll tell you. Yeah.
yeah, but I wasn't like a DBZ guy in the first place, so that's part of why I was like, I ain't really hyped to play that, even though I like tag fighters.
To be fair,
But
the
yeah,
online
Kinda
was
overrated.
trash. Like when it came out, man. Like it was bad.
yeah,
It's
I
kinda
do hope
overrated, man.
I do hope they bring Marvel versus Capcom back. So
Well, yeah. I mean, I was gonna say for Evil this year, we got a great lineup, and I think one of them is Marvel's Capcom 3. So we're gonna be all over that, bro.
Do you think it's a possibility that we ever get SOCOM back?
Uh, yeah, I don't hold out hope for it. I think it's possible, but I don't think it's in development right now. I
Yeah,
don't think, yeah, because before I did believe, and other people believe that Guerrilla was working on it, but
yeah,
that's clearly the Horizon multiplayer game now.
yeah,
But I think PlayStation has had to like consider it time and time again because okay, you need shooters, you need an online live service, games service. You literally own the IPs to several. You have to bring back one of these games. Like I just like
yeah,
even if you rather bank on something new, like a bunch of new IPs by the like new studios, you got to know it makes sense for you to bring back one of them. Resistance, Killzone, or SOCOM. You have to bring back one. It don't got to be all of them. One makes absolute sense. So I can only hope.
for sure. And like I feel like I personally I was so excited for that rumor, like the possibility of Guerrilla making a SOCOM because like people forget how good Killzone 2 multiplayer was.
It
Like
was.
that game's multiplayer like I put so many hours into that multiplayer. Um, yeah, like that's why I was personally excited. But then it's like you get to Killzone Shadowfall. I don't know if you put too much time into that multiplayer, but it's just like
I put
it
a
was just
lot
like,
of time into Shadowfall.
how
A
did you feel
lot.
about that one specifically then?
I actually really liked Shadowfall. I think that multiplayer is actually really the single player sucks. I don't know what they were doing with that. But the multiplayer for Shadowfall is actually really good. Like the gunplay, the levels, all of that. And like one of the reasons I think people don't have a lot of confidence in like these multiplayer games coming back is because they think of the multiplayer games as they were at that time.
Mm, yeah,
They're not gonna be the same way they were a decade ago. These are gonna be renewed, rebranded, overhauled games. It's gonna be like how they, like kind of what happened with God of War. Like they had to, from God of War 3, Santa Monica, they actually were making a different game that got canceled. And they're like, okay, how can we bring back God of War, but make it different and renewed?
yeah,
And that's what they did. Like people are thinking Killzone is going to come back as Killzone 3 as it was just on PS5. No, it wouldn't be like that. It would be the core and the DNA, but it's not going to play like it did. And a lot of stuff held those multiplayer games back. Like PSN sucked then.
yeah.
Um the console honestly those consoles kind of sucked as far as performance goes. Like we were playing a lot of those multiplayer games. They were struggling to stay at 60 frames.
Yep.
it was a lot of technical limitations that made those games bad. They, all of that stuff would be, just remedied now. They've learned a lot. They have the right tools and the right experience and the knowledge now to just make it successful.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you would have to think that, yeah, it's gonna take all the sort of like the things that make like modern day lives of service games what they are today, and that would also be applied into like these new games if they were to come back. Like, yeah, it's not just
Mhm.
gonna be a carryover of like what Killzone 2 was back in 2009 or
Right.
whatever. Um, did you ever I guess Macho, if you have any other questions, my last one is, did you play Mag back in the day?
I played it a little bit. That's the one I was never really Mag is was ahead of its time. I think that
Yes, okay,
that
yes.
the problem with Mag is it came out 2 generations way before. Like, that
Yeah,
if you look at the gaming now, or early this gen, late last gen, Mag like, the most successful games were, like, Mag successors.
right,
When you look at
right.
PUBG and all these other, large scale, games, Mag wasn't, battle royale, but that's literally the problem with Mag. It was way too early. If you were to put Mag out the end of last generation or the beginning of this generation, it would have been success. But
Yeah,
it was way too early.
yeah. It was, like, legit, it was also doing, like, things that Battlefield was doing, like, years before
Mhm.
Battlefield kinda, like, hit its stride too. Um, yeah, man, like, I put a lot of time into Mag, man. I I gotta give that game its flowers every time that I possibly can. And it was, like, what, like, 32v32, or was it more? It was a lot more, right?
I feel
I feel
like it was bigger than that. It was bigger. I forgot
yeah,
the exact number, but it was bigger than that.
I think it was too. Um, but yeah, man, I actually like really, really enjoy that. Like that and Killzone 2 were like my two multiplayer games for that generation. Um, but yeah. Macho, do you have anything else you wanted to ask?
Yeah, because I started watching BG's videos for Last of Us, the factions multiplayer, especially with him and Jack and Gamer 2323. Shouts to all them in the live streams, the hilarious live streams, man. They were just that was a ball. Just watching those, and I'm not gonna lie, getting some sort of getting a little bit of inspiration for the gameplay style because you guys would go in and not use listening mode. I'm like, that's interesting. That's an extra little challenge. But then I started doing it, and yo, it got so much more fun. And then jumping into grounded mode in a single player, I was just like, oh, this is easy breezy. Like it's super.
Mhm.
It's not even hard, man. But yeah, no. I thought it was really great for that itself, just the mechanics and everything. I just love like the intensity that comes with factions. So I wanted to ask, what are you hoping they're gonna bring for factions too? Because there's a whole bunch of rumors going around whether it's gonna be a lot bigger, or if it's gonna be battle royale. Like, what are your main hopes for with factions too?
I would hope battle royale is not their priority, because you're kind of chasing a trend that's, I would argue, is kind of dying out a bit right now. And it's my opinion that to be successful right now in games of service, you have to do what others are not doing. And like, if you kind of notice, like the traditional, conventional, like multiplayer modes, like in multiplayer games, they're kind of dying out, which is weird
Yeah,
because like, okay, like Call of Duty has its battle royale, right? Warzone, but for people who want to play those core modes, you still have that, and that's the thing why there's like they're kind of like in the greatest position also because like Fortnite doesn't have, I don't think it has, like Fortnite doesn't have like a capture the flag or a team deathmatch or nothing, like it doesn't have those modes, right? They have
Yeah.
a lot of shit, so I don't want to
No,
make a mistake.
they have one that's it is a team deathmatch, but it's like it's still 50 versus 50, I think.
Right. Yeah. See.
But it's not that fun. It's
Yeah,
whatever.
and they don't have to do it because they're still, massively successful. They don't have to do it.
Hmm.
But I'm saying, like, I think people underestimate the amount of people who just want to play those, a multiplayer game, and
Yeah.
Hmm.
it has those core modes. Like, I've missed those core modes, and I'm like, why does like nobody? It to me, it feels like nobody like cares about like those traditional ones when those are the best. Those some of the best modes. Like playing a battle royale, just a battle royale mode over and over again, in my opinion, is just gets extremely boring. You want to switch it up and have that variety. So I think if if you have a multiplayer game with all those modes, a lot of weapons, the content thing is probably what I'm most worried about. Like I don't have any doubts about them creating a fun multiplayer game, a really good multiplayer game. It's I don't know how you if they have enough staff to support it long time. Of course they have to do a lot of hiring and stuff like that and dedicate a team to it, but
Right.
that's probably the most challenging part. I don't think the challenging part for them is creating a really good multiplayer game, as much as people doubt or question if they can. I think if they, with their full effort, just as much as they put into single player games, I think they could create a multiplayer game just as well. I don't believe that they're just, oh, they're only talented in single player games. I don't I'm just one of those who don't believe that at all. I just believe they haven't done it. Um so for factions, I just want like I want like a lot of modes, all those core modes. I want to, it would be cool to have like the PvP, but also the PvE aspect of it. Like you're fighting against another team, but there's also clickers and other infected in the air in the arena. Like
Mm,
that would be
like
amazing.
Yeah, that'll be
like
fire.
Gambit in Destiny 2. You have Gambit where essentially you're fighting other players, but until you get to that point, you have to fight legions of enemies and ads. So I think yeah.
Because a huge part of The Last of Us is obviously the infected. So you have to find a way
Mhm.
to implement that into into factions if you can.
Yeah.
A lot of
That'd be cool.
customization. They need that too, like cosmetic customizations. You need a lot of that. And yeah, like increase the. I think you got to increase the player count in matches, but I think you still want to keep it intimate. Like I don't necessarily want to play
Battlefield
like a
number. Yeah.
yeah, I don't want that. Like because factions was 4v4. I
Yeah.
Yeah.
assume it's gonna increase. Like let's say, an 8v8, I'm not mad at that. That still feels small and intimate in a way.
Yeah.
So I
Mhm.
think you just got to keep the core and the DNA of what factions was just the intimate gunplay and the strategy to it because factions has a strategy element to it. So yeah,
For sure.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
definitely.
you got introduced verticality in those maps too. I think that's why
yeah, definitely.
Battlefield, when it works, Battlefield 4 worked so much because they had the whole evolution or whatever where the maps were destroyed, but it kept everything evolving. So it's really fun. That.
Yeah,
Are you gonna say
I
something?
definitely agree that like I don't want them to like overcomplicate it, you know? Like I just
Mm,
want to keep it simple, like get those core game modes in there and I don't need it to be like a free to play royale or anything like that. Like just like keep the kind of core basics that we had with like classic multiplayer games back in like the PS3 era or whatever. And like that's all I need personally, you know? Um because it's weird because like you have like Destiny 2 and it's like they're constantly taking out those classic, team deathmatch or whatever, and then like putting in new or like different game modes in there. It's like, man, but like I just want to play like like a just a classic good old team deathmatch or like a capture the flag. Like that's really all I need. I don't need it to be any more like overcomplicated than that. Um,
yeah, but I
yeah,
think it's good to rotate them though, because we're talking about attention span of a first person player, and a lot of people just they let's say you have all of them laid out, and you can choose team deathmatch every single day. You're gonna get people that are gonna get tired and exhausted and maybe bored. And they'll drop the game because maybe Team Deathmatch is not the same anymore. But if you keep it rotating, then they find out, oh wait, Team Deathmatch is up this week. So now you have that player base that gets online. I think it's just good have all of them, but have them rotating like Destiny does. That's why their player base just does not go down because they're constantly just giving people what they want. Just it caters to different audiences or different demographics of the same community.
Well, I don't care about those people, okay? My
Yeah, but I'm thinking for the
my
that's what they do. What they do.
my
Keep retention.
my
So
my happiness
you don't care about it. You don't play any multiplayer games. What are you talking about?
my happiness, my enjoyment comes first, man. So
Shut the. You didn't even finish. You didn't continue Destruction All Stars.
This my man's
that's
flabbergasted,
for
man.
good reason.
You just tipped him your pinky and he's already just falling.
This man's like, I do not like what I don't do. It's like, bro, play Divinity, play that multiplayer.
Yeah,
But
join us
like
for Diablo and Stranger Paradise. So what's up?
Yeah.
What's up?
we'll see.
Huh?
But I do agree that like, and I don't know if like you guys also think this too. I am worried about like what BG was saying is like the support on this because like I'm curious about how do you divide like a part of Naughty Dog to focus on factions and then like so then it's just like the rest of the studio going to work on like Neil's next project, you know? So like I don't know, like I do worry about like how like also like how long are they going to support this? Like is this like a dreams thing where they only support it for like a few years or are they in this for like the long haul? What does the content kind of like look like after a certain period, like you know all those stuff, like I am also like very curious about how they're going to handle that stuff.
I don't know. We might need to ask Deviation Games.
Yeah, man.
Too soon?
And
Too
that's
soon?
that's a good segue. That's a good
Too,
segue, man.
too soon?
Let's talk about I mean first off, let's get to PixelOpus, man. So I forgot what it happened last week. I think no, so it happened Friday. I remember because Friday is like when you release bad news. So yeah, it was announced that PixelOpus announced it themselves on Twitter. Man, that was sad, bro. Like not even like Sony did it. It was like, all right, y'all do it. But yeah, so PixelOpus announced on Twitter that their PixelOpus journey is coming to an end. Let me see if I can pull up the tweet real quickly. Um, yeah, so they said, quote, "Dear friends, our PixelOpus adventure has come to an end. As we look to new adventures, we wanted to say a heartfelt thank you to the millions of passionate players who have supported us in our mission to make beautiful, imaginative games with heart. We are so grateful." And Sony, in a comment to IGN, basically said that during a recent review process, it was then determined that PixelOpus will now be shutting down come June 2nd. This also, I would imagine, ties into Deviation Games because Sony is doing this big portfolio review process currently. That coincides with what happened to Dreams. That coincides with what happened to Deviation. That coincides with this other rumor that we heard about this apparent sci-fi shooter that Sony just canceled as well. And then that coincides with what happened to PixelOpus. I think Cory Barlog also tweeted I think like last week or something like that, or a few weeks ago that he was going on like a trip for work. So I just kind of assumed that he was like making a presentation about what he's working on. Uh, and I think that would align with this whole portfolio review that Sony is doing. So, um, but yeah, just want to get everyone's thoughts, man, on PixelOpus shutting down and what do you guys think this means for like the wider PlayStation portfolio? Because I've seen the argument that this makes their portfolio of games like less interesting or whatever. Because like this is one of those, you know, quote unquote, like creative teams and smaller teams that Sony has. So yeah, Macho, what's your kind of overhead like thoughts on this?
It feels like it's not surprising. That's a sad part of it, really, because the only game I played from Pixel Opus was Concrete Genie. I did really like it. I planned to platinum it, but eventually I just kind of got lost in other games. But I thought it was very creative for what it was doing as a platformer. It felt very PS2 like, and it had some weird nostalgia attached to it because of like the structure of it and everything. But it was a nice, simple, and fun game. And I think that it was sort of a good way for that studio to get their feet wet before their next project, which was tied to like what they're going to partner with Sony Animation. So
Mm-hmm.
I had to imagine that Sony Animation's like really all hands on deck with the Spider-Man movies and the short that's coming out for them to kind of shorthand Pixel Opus in a sense. And so it's not necessarily their fault, but when PlayStation was going around going around their studio to see what we can do or who who's going to be cut, where the case may be, Pixel was on the board, man. So it sucks to see, but I don't know. We haven't seen the game from them in a long time, so again, it's not surprising. And the same thing with the other studios we've been talking about. So yeah,
BG, what do you think about PixelOpus being shut down?
Yeah, so PixelOpus. So their first game was this game called. They've only been open for like 10 years. Their first game was this game called Entwined.
Yeah,
I think it was, and I never played it. Most people said it wasn't a good game.
yeah,
Um, and then they made Concrete Genie, which I also never played. Uh, most people said it was an okay game, but like when everybody talks about this, most people say they haven't played the games.
right.
So it's I think the audience has to realize that when we don't buy certain games, we're also telling PlayStation we don't care about the games the studio is making.
Yeah,
So yeah, they're gonna do their review, of their portfolio, and they don't seem to care. Because this studio was like probably I think it was less than 15 people even at the
yeah,
studio, and so it cost them nothing to maintain and to keep them open. But PlayStation doesn't care anymore. They during the PS3, even PS4 generation, they would keep studios going for creativity purposes, and just because you're a studio that does something different, and you're artsy and creative, so we want to keep. They don't care no more. Like if you're not making them money, which I can't necessarily argue with, because the games that make the money are the games that I care about anyway. So
yeah,
if this was different for me, where like the games I care about were the ones that were getting shut down, I would definitely feel away. But that's not the case. So I get it. Like you got to support these games, or PlayStation is going to shut them down. They don't care if it doesn't cost them much to keep them open. If you're not serving a purpose, they're going to review this portfolio, and we could only guess that they weren't meeting milestones,
right.
because that's a lot of the case. Reportedly, what happens? PlayStation does their review. Most likely Herman Holst, I believe. He goes to the studio, see the progress that they're making, and they be like, "Oh, this is horrible, and you're not meeting milestones. This game is getting canceled, or you're getting shut down." And people can look at that multiple ways. Like there is a positive part to that, that they're willing to stop a studio in its tracks and saying you're not doing your job well, you're not making enough progress, so we're going to shut you down because we're not going to let any trash, we're going to not going to let you waste money and release trash, and not waste any time. So there's a good part of that. So
Yeah.
that's how I see it.
That's kind of how I took it, where they're doing this portfolio review, and they check out what Pixel Opus. And keep in mind, they haven't released the game since 2019. We're coming up on
Yeah,
like close to 4 years since they've released something. We haven't even seen what they worked on,
and
but
their
they
games
have.
are like 3 hours long, so
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So like, yeah, I just assumed that, like, yeah, Herman Holst or Scott Rhodey or whoever was doing this portfolio review looked at what they were working on, and it just wasn't meeting like what they were needing at the time, or it just wasn't coming together, right? Some say that should have happened with Redfall. So yeah, but
yes, sir.
Walt,
It's a segue or too early.
no, it's not. uh, Walt, what about you, man? What do you think about this whole Pixel Opus situation? I think it is a good point that, like, hey, like, it's that whole thing about like vote with your wallet. So like if you're not buying these sorts of games, you're not buying a game like Gravity Rush 2, then it's like you see what happens, right?
Oh
So
man,
yeah,
I feel the pain in your voice.
I
So
know, I know.
I think it's
Yeah,
tougher when your repertoire is not that big because you can only apply that same philosophy to specific companies. Because when you get big enough, there's no vote with your wallet that's gonna matter because you're gonna make up the revenue and profit off it. But in this case, they only had what the Entwine, and then they had Concrete Genie. And it
yeah,
seemed like from BG, Entwine didn't really do well, at least not critically. In Concrete Genie, while it had something special going for it, you didn't have enough people maybe knowing about it. I bet like more than half of PlayStation owners don't even know what the hell Concrete Genie might be. Uh, but I don't know, man. Is it unfortunate? Maybe. I just hope that, whoever was in charge of the creative aspects of that game, I don't know how the gameplay was, if it was good or not, but I know that creatively and thematically the game had a lot going for it. So I just hope that we get those writers slash designers somewhere else that they can actually, prosper and really go all out with their creative, as they say, juices. But
Mm.
I don't know, man. It's unfortunate. And it's
Why
more
did you chuckle
unfortunate
after
because
that? Why did you chuckle after that?
because life, But it's unfortunate because in this
You feeling
podcast,
it, you laughed at it.
Soul, you have been an advocate for this game, and you have like talked, you've given its roses, and it's kind of sad to, oh man, it's an arc. We kind of reached the finality of this arc
Wait,
from,
I gave roses to Concrete Genie?
yeah, you talked positively about it in the past,
You're the
Oh,
reason why I played
and
it, Soul. You're
yeah,
the inspiration.
oh man, I
yeah.
don't remember
Yeah, you don't remember half the
that.
shit you say because I think you're sleepy whenever you're like giving some wild opinions. Uh, but yeah, man, no, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. You just gotta. Some studios are just not meant for the long haul. You can't really tell CD Project Red that both of your walls Cyberpunk. No, man, they're gonna make the money. You can't really apply that same logic to certain places.
Yeah, I don't think this
uh,
makes like PlayStation's lineup of games less interesting either because
No,
we didn't know anything about the game. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So like how can we make that sort of assumption that well PlayStation's less diverse in their portfolio now? Like we didn't even know what the game looked like or what it was, man.
yeah.
This is why Sony's so tight-lipped on their projects now because when
I
things
guess
are
we'll
not
never know.
when things are not coming along and people are excited about it and it gets canceled, some people get upset, like cough cough scalebound. So there you go.
and
Oh
like
man,
to
rip.
that whole argument about their portfolio being like less interesting. Um, I don't know, man, because I feel like we can have that conversation once we actually get this showcase and see like everything that they're working on. But
Yeah, that's fair.
but at the same time, like I feel like Sony is they're kind of covering their bases through the sort of like indie deals that they're doing. So it's like sure, internally they're not making all these, small, quirky, like PS3 games that they would like green light during the PS3 era, but they can go to Ember Lab and do a partnership to get Kena Bridge of Spirits exclusive on their platform, or Stray exclusive on their platform, or Chia exclusive, or something like a Roller Drum, right? So they're still kind of like it feels like they're just getting these sort of like weird smaller titles through other means. They're just not doing it internally, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I feel like we're not really missing much because like we're still getting like weird experimental titles like a Returnal, right? Or a smaller game like Sackboy Big Adventure. Like I still feel like we'll get those titles, but maybe Sony will just be a little bit more selective about like how they go about it. Um, because I also feel like they can't have like a Days Gone situation where that game is just kind of like in development for so goddamn long and then it comes out and like it just doesn't really
It
light
was
the
so
world
good.
on fire. Yeah, so I don't know. But then that also kind of ties into Deviation Games and BG. I don't know about you, but like in terms of just like pedigree, in terms of like the people who were like working there, I had my eye on this specific project that they were working on. So like I was a little shocked when we heard, I think yesterday, that they were hit with like massive layoffs, like something like 90 people had been laid off from that studio. So like we don't know like what's going on with that project now. Like, is that game still in development or it has been canceled? So like, what's your sort of thoughts on hearing what's been going on with like Deviation recently?
So I wouldn't be surprised if it gets canceled, because they laid off over half their staff. I think they had like 150, so they laid off 90. That's more than half.
Yeah,
And I don't know how you finish a AAA game with less than half your staff.
yeah,
So, but I don't know what it means that you lay off half the people, but obviously the studio isn't closing, at least not as far as we know. So does that mean they cancel this project and then they start working on something smaller and new? I'm not sure. This is a Sony backed studio. Sony could possibly, I mean, they could possibly bail them out. I don't know because they've acquired like other partner studios that they worked with, like Havens, because they said they were so impressed with the progress, but they haven't acquired Deviation, and they're
Right.
letting Deviation, have layoffs. Sony isn't in control of the layoffs, but I imagine they could save them from those layoffs since they're backing them. But
Yeah.
if they're not interested in doing that, then they're not then you would assume the project isn't going well. They're not impressed with the progress and the milestones the studio is making. Um, and I would say this is an important project for them because people have said PlayStation needs first person shooters. And the studio is a bunch of developers from Call of Duty and I think Respawn. So a whole bunch of veterans from Call of Duty. So you would think they would be really good at making a first person shooter, we assume. And like they said they were making just a few months ago, I think they said they were working on mocap. So this was going to be one of those, you know, very high quality presentation type games if they were doing mocap and all that stuff. And they had Jason Blundell and they like say he's the mind behind like zombies and some of the core stuff at Call of Duty. So yeah, it's not looking good. I don't This is not a game that I think we were gonna see at the rumored show, but I yeah, I don't know if we ever see it now. It'll be interesting to see what actually because this is a new studio that hasn't made anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they literally haven't made anything. This is their first game, and they are already getting doing layoffs. That's kind of crazy. Maybe they got in over their head on certain things. I don't know, man.
Yeah. I think it's telling that like Sony had no issue acquiring two studios who haven't released the game yet in Haven and Firewalk.
Yeah,
Um, and we assumed that the same thing was going to happen with Deviation because like these partnerships that they were making with these studios and then they acquired them like a year after or whatever. So yeah, we assumed the same thing was going to happen with Deviation, but now it's like okay, now we understand why that didn't happen with Deviation because there was clearly something happening in the background that wasn't happening at Haven and wasn't happening at Firewalk that made Sony feel comfortable to acquire those studios, but not Deviation. So I do find that like really interesting. Um, but Macho, what about you, man? What did you? Is this game dead? Is Deviation dead?
Oh man, it's so hard to tell because like you say, when you lose like half of your staff, it's kind of crippling, man. It feels like they're going to be the support studio now. It really makes you think like PlayStation looking at Redfall and everything, and be like, damn, man, we don't want that. So like, you gotta imagine like what was really behind the scenes, and yeah, again, PlayStation's they're not against shutting down a studio or shutting down a project if it's not meeting the standards that they want to live up to. And we've seen that time and time again. A lot of people I've seen mention, the documentary with God of War. I mean, Shuei went to go play test God of War, and he left pissed because it's just not meeting the expectations.
Yeah,
So, so yeah, I think
they could
par for the course.
they could take the IP
Mm-hmm.
and give it to somebody else. They have done because they did that with this rumor Twisted Metal, where
right.
Lucid was working on it first. A studio that made garbage all Destruction All Stars, and then they took the IP and then gave it to Fire. Was it is Firewalk, I think, and they even took staff from Lucid. They took like some of the best
Yeah,
people from Lucid and said, "Hey, come work on Twisted Metal for us." Apparently, so
that's so
that's
messed up.
possible that they bring people that they want uh from this studio and give this IP to another in-house studio, and they do that. It's possible.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny too because like I don't know if you've ever seen like the inside of Deviation Games, but like on their walls they have a bunch of these like PlayStation DualSense controllers like all over the walls and stuff like that too. So it's like I don't know, it's funny that like possibly their game is getting canceled by Sony, but like they have all this like Sony memorabilia like all over their walls and stuff like that. Like damn, it's crazy how like some of this stuff like turns out sometimes. But Walt, what about you, man? What do you think about Deviation possibly being canned?
Oh man, it's crazy that whenever we do end up talking about the life cycle of a studio, it's almost never, like an evolution. It's either layoffs or is it gonna die? Uh, I don't like I mean, first of all, layoffs. I don't want this to be the reason why studios, die or not. I just want it to be whether or not they did what they set up to do or not. But is it dead? I sure as hope not. I don't think so. Uh, but then again, if they do have an exclusive project that, again, we don't know. Do we know? Wait, do we know what it is?
The game?
Just a first person shooter. That's all
Yeah.
we
Okay,
know.
the first person. Is this the same? No, that was Fire Sprite. I'm thinking of a different one. Uh, if they really are for the diversity of the PlayStation portfolio, if they really are about, pushing for this genre to prosper more on this console, it's not gonna die because they're gonna push for it to be you know uh, regenerated, I guess, from within. Because truly, you cannot make it. I don't think if you want to make a truly solid, long-lasting first-person shooter or first-person game with less than half of your staff, that sounds like those people are gonna suffer more than we are from the lack of quality because they're gonna go on overdrive, overtime, unless they take years and years for it to be developed. So if it being quote unquote dead means that these people get to venture off to more studios that will actually, give them breathing room to fulfill their job, then by all means. But if it not being dead implies that these people are gonna go on overdrive and not really have even time to breathe, then I don't want. I always just think about like the people involved in the studio. Um,
That does make me curious though, because like, the report is the layoffs. We didn't hear about the game being canceled. So like, does
yeah.
Sony still believe in the game itself to not cancel the thing? Like, do they still see like some merit to keep pumping money into this thing? Or, that's what I'm curious about. Or has the game also been canceled, but we just like haven't heard about that or whatever. So
Or we're
uh,
about to. I don't know, because again, this is fresh, right off the presses. So maybe the next following weeks we'll actually gonna get more insight on it because, I mean, what you can't really just say this and not really elaborate on what the future of this company is because you want the media to kind of, continue letting people know, oh, hey, is this something you should look forward to or not? Should you, you know, the hopes of games to come? Because that's, there's certain companies that will say, they're coming and they never come. So is this something that you want to keep people hopeful for?
Yeah, I'm sure Jason Schreier and those reporters at
Yeah.
VGC are on it right now. So
Oh yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, man.
Um, But yeah, man, that is Deviation Games and PixelOpus. There was another studio too that their sci-fi shooter got canceled. I forget the name of the studio, but like that was another team that like apparently they were just founded in like 2016 and they really had only done like support work up until I think like 2021. That's when they first started working on this sci-fi shooter. Um, but yeah, apparently that game just got canceled by Sony. So um, yeah, it's unfortunate, but like at the same time, it's like, hey, if these games aren't meeting like what we need as a company, then like, hey, like it's all fair then, I guess.
yeah, it's
Um,
understandable, really.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, man, that is that. Let's quickly move on to the Guerilla 20th anniversary. I have sort of like the big news here was some of the sales updates that we got from this whole celebration. So first of all, Horizon Forbidden West has been confirmed to have sold through 8.4 million copies. And then the Horizon franchise was like what 32.7 I think total for the franchise, right?
Hmm.
Um so yeah, man, I it's funny because like people were trying to say that Forbidden West was like a flop and whatever, and to me the most important thing that I got out of this was that like because you always hear when when Zero Dawn came out and then when Forbidden West came out, up against Breath of the Wild and up against Elden Ring, that like, oh, those two games like completely overshadowed Horizon, and Horizon didn't sell well because of those. It's like, oh no, Horizon did completely fine despite launching next to both of those big games. So like, I thought it was nice to kind of get that confirmation. But yeah, man, Horizon is a pretty big deal, man. Even with just like two main entries, it's sold a lot. So, BG, what was your sort of reaction to seeing these numbers for Horizon?
Yeah, they're really good numbers for Forbidden West. Um, do I think it has the potential to do more, or could it have done more in that amount of time? Yeah, like I feel like it's good enough to hit 10 million in that amount of time, which it will go on to do.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's a great series. I just hope PlayStation just handles it well moving forward because there's a lot of Horizon projects and I hope some of them aren't real. Like there's a rumored MMO. I kind of hope that's not real, or I just kind of hope they don't force it out super soon. We know the multiplayer is coming.
yeah,
Then there's definitely going to be a sequel, so they have to pace these things out properly and not just like saturate Horizon too much. And yeah, like people always the whole Zelda overshadowing Horizon was always overblown because people like because Zelda is like this legendary historic franchise. And but Breath of the Wild sold like 20, I want to say like 28 million or something like that. Which
yeah,
and Horizon, the first one is a brand new IP and it sold over 20 million.
yeah, yeah,
Like I'm like, do y'all realize that? Like this is a brand new game and it's sold it's in right next to Zelda, which is legendary, it still sold 20 million copies. Like there's not many other games that could do that. You put a lot of other games right next to like Zelda twice, it's not selling that. But
right.
people act like, Breath of the Wild just like completely made Horizon irrelevant. Like, bro, they both sold in the 20 million. So it's like, okay.
And what's crazy is that there are games that are multi-platform and they still can't hit that number, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I don't know, that conversation point was always just like so weird to me. Um, but yeah, Macho, what about you, man? Seeing these numbers, Horizon looks to be pretty healthy, man.
Yeah, I think the one thing to take away from the Horizon franchise is that it has long legs. So even in the shadow of Elden Ring and Zelda, which we said before, like again, two massive IPs. Like then, I mean, Zelda's been legendary since gaming, started, and then Elden Ring being as big as it is. But the fact that Horizon still is able to reach these numbers are really impressive, in my opinion. I thought it was gonna be a little bit more on the for Forbidden West. I thought it'd be at least close to 10 million, but still 8 million is nothing to scoff at either, especially for a sequel where everyone was really kind of like, what's going on with this game? It's not really innovating. It's like a DLC, blah blah blah. That stupid narrative that people say that sequels are now like DLC and stuff like that. So I'm glad Horizon's able to kind of beat those odds and even then to reach better numbers. So it's really cool to see. Like I said before, it has long legs. So even if it's not selling, 5 million in a month, it's gonna do that over time. I think that's really what's important for these franchises to show that because it shows that people still care. Even beyond the release date and the hype month when the game comes out, people still care about the franchise. That they want to pick it up afterwards, even if it is for Christmas or for the holidays or when they're on summer break or whatever. And I think that's not every game can do that. So
Walt, what about you, man?
Good game, do good numbers. No, man, it's they knocked it out of the park, and it's even more beautiful the fact that they went from something like a disappointing entry into a franchise, but by a large consensus, to a PlayStation mascot, a new mascot. Because I think for a long time, although I don't know if there's a character per se at Killzone, but the face of that, I don't know anything about Killzone. So the soldier guy that had like a gas mask, like that was like synonymous with PlayStation. But now it's Aloy, and look at Burning Shores. Shores, you guys praised the hell out of it, and it sounds like they're only going up from here. Because from Zero Dawn to Forbidden West, oh my God, what a jump! And to the point where Macho and I, we always like look for the next best open world game. and I think Macho, I know still Macho feels this way, but he went from like Red Dead Redemption to having the best open world to Horizon probably having the best and the most beautiful looking. So
Yeah,
this is
as far as
phenomenal.
graphically, yeah, graphically is
Graphically, maybe not
wild.
in terms of breathing, and lifting, but I think to BG's point, it's insane that you have a juggernaut of a property like Zelda being in the same talks as a new IP, and it's crazy. It's absolutely baffling that, and they both have gliders. Am I right, guys? Like that's crazy. Great stuff.
Um,
Great stuff.
so I feel like naturally we can kind of let's talk about Spider-Man 2 really quickly.
Yep.
Um, do you guys so before God of War Ragnarok, we had Last of Us Part 2 set a record for it sold 4 million copies in 3 days, and that was the fastest selling PlayStation first party game at the time. And then God of War Ragnarok, I think, beat it. It's a little unclear about like the time frame, but it sold 5.1 million copies in its launch week, and I think that was like the new record. Do you guys think that's go to BG first? Do you think Spider-Man 2 will beat that 5.1 million copies sold in like 3 days or whatever?
Which headset that was was this
God of War Ragnarok hit that.
God of War. Oh, in 3 days. I'm gonna say I'm actually I'm gonna say yes because even though God of War, it had PS4 to help it sell those numbers. PlayStation this whole year has been PS5 have been selling crazy. Like it's
Yeah.
the numbers are insane. So even though God of War had PS4 to help it out, the sales this whole year, and by the time God Spider-Man 2 comes out, um, definitely are going to help it out. And Spider-Man as an IP, as big as God of War is, Spider-Man is bigger than
Yeah.
just a game. It transcends that. So I still think Spider-Man will sell more than that. They're going to do some heavy marketing. Um, the movie, Across the Spider-Verse is coming out this year. Just the all the attention on Spider-Man. I'm sure they're going to do like it should show up at this rumored showcase, but they're gonna do a state of play on it also. They're gonna do all the marketing to make sure this game sells a lot. There's probably gonna be a bundle, um, and people try to hold bundles against games. Bundles aren't a bad thing.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I definitely think it's gonna surpass that what God of War did.
Yeah, you're gonna see the subways in New York plastered with like
Yep.
Spider-Man 2 ads and stuff like that. Macho, what about you, man? Do you think Spider-Man 2 has a chance to beat God of War Ragnarok's record?
Absolutely, man. I feel like some people kind of underestimate the powers like Spider-Man's presence in media now, especially with Across the Spider-Verse being released this year and the amount of hype that movie's gonna get. We all know like that movie's gonna hit, man. That movie's gonna hit. It's gonna carry on for the rest of the year. People are gonna talk about awards, or the case may be. And PlayStation's already doing their marketing beats with like having the PlayStation 5 at the end of certain trailers or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Like they're already on it, man. Their marketing beats like really it's unbeatable when it comes to like their marquee titles. And on top of that, not only are you having Spider-Man in this game, you're having Miles Morales, which arguably is just as popular as Peter Parker Spider-Man at this point. And on top of that, you have Venom, which
Yeah.
is one of the most popular anti-heroes and superhero fandom. So if you
Arguably the most popular anti-hero in Marvel aside from Deadpool.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So with just those three juggernauts and that in this one game, and then you're gonna have obviously Craven being whatever role is as the main villain or the case may be, then possibly Green Goblin too, depending on how it's gonna shape out from either Green Goblin or Hobgoblin, depending on who's going to put on the mask. But
Damn, I forgot about that.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, that teaser.
yeah, I mean, well, the teaser is more for Venom than
But
anything.
you have Osborn being a dickhead, so
Yeah,
you know that there's something in there.
absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, so I think they're going for the jugular on this one. So it's gonna sell 10 million copies probably that first week, honestly. So
Yeah,
Walt, do you agree?
it's Spider-Man. Like God of War does well because of video game fans. You have both video game and movie fans because this is a post No Way Home Spider-Man. Because this first Spider-Man and Miles Morales came before No Way Home, and Miles Morales at least came out during the time where it was gonna, the hype was building up. This is like Spider-Man sold even more. It's on PC. Like the audience has grown. Like the first Spider-Man established something, and oh no, this is probably potentially can become, I mean, PlayStation's highest selling just title. It's too much. It's too big. You have both Spider-Mans, and that's listen. This game has too many good things happening for itself, and I think it doesn't feel fan servicey how some games do it, where it just feels kind of forced. It feels organic and earned. I think we've earned Miles Morales and Peter to be in the same game. And Venom. That's crazy. Peter Parker, Miles Morales and Venom are going to be in the same game. That is insane. In a world, in a game where they've established that the Avengers existed in. Not that the Avengers are going to show up, but just that. There's so much going on. I love it. It's crazy. It's crazy. And you still have the villains from the old one. They're imprisoned. So you have that to play around with. Oh man, what a now I'm realizing how hyped I am for this game. God damn. I never really thought about it. It's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, for sure. It's like when you think about it too, it's like it's crazy that it's been 5 years, man. Like it
Just 5 years?
no, but like obviously we got Miles Morales like in between that, but
Oh
like
true, yeah.
yeah, like when you actually think about it, like it's been so long since we played Spider-Man 2018. So yeah,
You know what it's been long about? So you know what how long it's been since we got a Persona. That's the real sin here, okay? God.
Y'all creeping up on Persona 5's 10th anniversary. I'm just saying that, bro.
Yeah, I can't wait for more mouthwash. Jesus Christ.
yeah, just like that body wash that they were selling at E3 for the Xbox.
That deodorant,
Um,
man.
but yeah, man. So that's the whole Guerilla sort of anniversary celebration. Um, do you guys think that there's a pot because I see this all the time too, but and I guess this is kind of like what we were talking about earlier, BG, of like multiplayer games in general and like our favorite multiplayer games. Do you guys think there's a possibility Guerrilla will ever return to Killzone, or are they just like completely done with that franchise?
No, I think it's very possible. I think it's very possible they revisit it at some point. I don't think they're done with it, but Horizon multiplayer is clearly going to be their priority, and they
Yeah,
would need to like get a separate team on it, or somebody else would have to do it because I think they are very focused on Horizon right now.
yeah, because like you would have to assume that like Horizon 3 would be like their last like major
Hmm.
Horizon game. So like yeah, it does make you wonder like do they do a new IP after that or do they go back to Killzone or do they kind of do like what Naughty Dog did back in what 2010 or whatever when they split into Uncharted 3 and then split into The Last of Us with those two teams. So like yeah, and like I feel like Guerrilla has like the numbers at that studio to actually be able to do something like that, but yeah, it's tough because like they're also working on like goddamn like three other projects. So like, yeah, um, yeah. Let's move on to like our final topic of the show, and that is this whole Redfall slash Phil Spencer kind of funny interview, and like I guess like the state of Xbox as well. Um, BG, do you remember like another time when like the Xbox community has been like this it feels like downtrodden or whatever. Like I feel like I haven't seen them like this down in terms of just like everything that has happened for like the past like 2 weeks or so. Like I haven't seen them like this down in like a long time. I feel like
No, I mean, maybe there's some point during last generation where it was just the continuous mediocre games. But I don't know. This might be one of the worst. Like last 3 weeks might be one of some of the worst weeks that like for Xbox because of the the deal, the ABK thing, and then and then Redfall, and then this interview. It was just back to back hits. It's been one of the worst months, possibly. I thought about it. I'm like, I'm not sure whether like between like when the Sony hack back
Yeah,
in during the PS3. I'm like, I'm not sure if that because that happened for like that continued for like a month. I'm not sure if that month was worse or that this month has been the past month has been worse for Xbox. I don't know which one is honestly worse. They're like really just bad. Um, but yeah, it's just like they really can't get a win, especially in a year that was supposed to be. They say this every time, but this was
yeah,
supposed to be this was supposed to be the year guaranteed where things start getting in a cadence and a rhythm where it's going to be a major game every quarter and it's going to be quality. This was the one. They
yeah.
they say they were like, yeah, we know we said it last year, but no, it's definitely this year.
We know we said that the last like 4 years, but it's this one. It's this one this time. Um, yeah, man. So like I feel like, man, there are so many quotes in this interview that like um I just at the end of the day, man, I'm like, yeah, the transparency and him going on there is like pretty cool and it's appreciative. But like at the same time, like this is exactly why you will never see Jim Ryan's ass get up here and do an interview like this, or someone like a Doug Bowser go on an interview like this, because it's just like it's gonna be absolutely like picked apart and like, yeah, I don't know, man. So like where do you guys want to start in terms of like this interview? Like, what was the part of the interview that stuck out to you guys like the most that you kind of like want to get off your chest and talk about first?
I'll go first because like the entire interview was enlightening. Obviously, there's again, like you said, there's so much things to grab from it. But man, that last like 5 minutes of it was when I literally stopped what I was doing, just to, like really like looking at the interview and just listening because he laid the he laid the groundwork, man, for what the actual landscape was. We lost the worst generation possible, that being the Xbox One. And then he attributes it to obviously to like the fact that just because we'll build great games, not everyone's gonna sell their PS5s and whatnot. But it just it gets into the mindset where he's at, and I understood why he made those comments, even if they were a little, even if they were like a not not really backed up. They didn't actually follow questions or anything like that, which really doesn't help with the interview at all. But the fact that he just really laid the groundwork from all these people I've seen in podcasts saying like Xbox needs to dominate, they're gonna be winning the generation, we're gonna raise our flags and stand on the line, and we're gonna do this. And then the Phil just comes out like, we're losing. We are getting our ass beat, son. Like we don't know what to do. And he even alluded to it too. So where he's like, yeah, it's tough when the other people are making deals that we can't get around. So it's like, so they're absolutely getting strong armed, and you can tell in the interview that Phil was like, this is not gonna be a good weekend, man. Like I'm just like, there's no birthday parties, there's no popping champagne for releasing the game, none of that stuff, because they have a lot of work to do. And I do think he's a little misguided in the sense that just because you are in third place, that's not a bad thing, in my opinion. Nintendo was okay with being second. Like everybody, including Nintendo, were okay with the Switch being a secondary console for a lot of people last gen. And look where they are now.
Well, that's the thing. Like him saying that like Starfield could be like an 11 out of 10 and it won't make people sell their PS5s. Like, yeah, no shit. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but it might make me consider buying an Xbox, you know?
Yeah, you said it
Uh,
yourself. So we're like, if they come out with Dishonored 3, guess what I'm getting? An
yeah,
Xbox.
sure,
So
for
like,
sure.
and that doesn't mean you're leaving PS5 or you're all of a sudden
Exactly.
you're bleeding green. You got another console under your belt. You know what I mean? So like that's where I
That's a
think
crazy phrase.
that's why like I think like that interview was helpful but also very destructive because they didn't have the time, which they should have the time to ask follow up questions to that, because now we're left with even more questions and answers, and now just a downtrodden fan base.
Yeah.
um, yeah, and uh, did you want to add something to that, BG?
Just that he shouldn't have done the interview at all. Like some of the
Yeah,
stuff, like a lot of the stuff he said is just a terrible answer. It's not that some of it was definitely true, but you don't go up there and say that. Like the, I think there at some point it's better to say something, say nothing, or lie at his position. You
mhm,
don't get up there and do the opposite of instill, instill conf he, like, assured none of the Xbox, fan base that, like, he's fighting for them,
yeah.
right? He it was just this defeatist feeling.
If
You
I
don't
was
get
an
you
Xbox fan, I would feel like I have no confidence.
Yeah, you just don't say what he said. You just don't say it. Like, and honestly, I don't think Phil should be doing interviews, at his position with kind of funny. Like, it does when you think about it, it doesn't even look right that
Yeah,
Phil is doing interviews with like kind of funny. Not that there's excuse me, not that there's anything wrong with kind of funny. They're a great platform to talk to, but at his level, he should not be doing that. Nobody else is doing that.
yeah,
It's like Doug Bowser's not doing it, Jim Ryan not doing it. It's like he's doing it be- because he wants to almost pander to the base and be like, "Oh, look, I'm a human, I'm getting down to your human level to talk directly to you." And like, you don't need to do any of that, honestly.
yeah.
If 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 the games were delivering and if you had that confidence, you don't have to do any of this. It didn't make anything better. It would literally better if he came out and said nothing and just move forward and just act like like pretended like Redfall didn't exist. Some of the stuff you say, you just don't say that, bro. Like that's insane to me that he said some of the stuff that he said.
Yeah, and like I say this all the time on the podcast, but like I don't need these executives to like to be my friend or anything like that. Like it's purely like a transaction. Like you provide me a service and I give you money for that service, and like that's the extent of my relationship with you. Like that's it. So like I don't need you appearing on these podcasts trying to come off across as like, oh, you're one of the gamers or anything like that. So. I agree that I feel like he shouldn't have like gone on here because like to me the most alarming quote, like sure the stuff at the end was like really crazy for him to say, about the good games and all that stuff. But like also like this made me seriously doubt like Xbox's internal like review process and like their mock reviews and stuff like that because like he talked about how they were doing mock reviews on this game and it was coming up like double digits higher than what it actually ended up being. So it's like, who do you guys have at your company like reviewing your stuff, right? And like, have they
Mhm.
been like giving you mock reviews of like the other games that are currently in your portfolio as well, right?
I don't
Um,
know. Those whoever those play testers were need to. They need a warning or something. You need a warning with a pink slip or something, like a sticky note that's pink. Just put on the right of their desk, like we're watching you now,
and and
because
like
that's
to
wild. Double digits. They thought it was gonna be in the 70s.
yeah, and to that point, him saying that, oh, we should have got more involved with Redfall like earlier. And I'm like, what? So you guys just like let like knowing that this game like was kind of like in the shape that it was, you guys just kind of let Arcane continue to kind of like fend for themselves almost. It's like Arcane was like clearly like drowning and Xbox was like, yeah, okay, just keep doing what you're doing. So it's just like I don't know. I feel like that whole part was like insane to me too, that they just apparently did not get involved with this game at all. That they were, and that's the whole conversation about like, the hands off approach, right? A lot of people like to cheer when they hear that Xbox is so hands off, but I feel like Sony and probably Nintendo as well, they find this like good like balance of like yes, like being hands on, but then also knowing when to come in there and be like, hey, like what we just saw from Sony this week with like PixelOpus and Deviation, like that other team as well, or Shuhei with God of War, like they know how to find that balance of like giving you that creative freedom, but also knowing when to like step in there when things aren't going right. So that whole thing kind of like was like a red flag to me. Um, Macho, was that kind of like the same thing for you hearing that they didn't get involved with Redfall until it was too late?
Yeah, I mean, it was like too. Yeah, absolutely. Because I guarantee you, Phil Spencer got his hands on that game, he probably would have sent it back and be like, "Nah, this ain't done. It's not ready."
Yeah,
Because I mean, because now instead of having them say, having the harsh criticism right then and there while the game's being made and processed and everything else, now you have this situation where reviewers are getting it and gamers are getting it, and now we have headlines that say like, well, it's good for Game Pass. Like,
yeah,
is that what you want? Is that what you really want for them to do? Then, because like, it's just absolutely baffling to me that they didn't get more hands on with this, especially for something like this where this is their first AAA new IP for the console brand in since like what, Halo Infinite, right?
Yeah, and like and when you cancel, like they canceled the PS5 version, which is fine. That's what they should have done. But when you create a game for only one platform, that increases the game's quality because the developers only have to focus on one platform, like and optimizing it for that. So that usually helps a game, but it helps a game if you already know what you're doing and their direction, with this game was clearly for a long time they had none, and they weren't doing like checks. Is like you can be involved enough to cancel the PS5 version, but not be involved enough to actually
yeah,
do the milestone check-ins to see how the game is progressing. Like, and like this is not like the first time, so it's weird because it's like every time we're left wondering, okay, who's responsible for not knowing that this game was bad? It's like how can there be so many people and nobody knows who's responsible for the game being bad? You know what I'm saying? Like it's always like, I don't know, was it you? Was it like, bro? Like this has been happening for a long time. Like that's why people like I don't like I feel like Xbox fans don't get it sometimes. It's like, bro, how can this keep happening and nobody knows that the game was bad before? Like as normal human beings and gamers, I feel like any one of us would be able to play test that game and tell them this is a bad game.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
So how within y'all can't get nobody, and I'm not talking about with Redfall, I'm talking about the last 10 years, 10 plus years of games that y'all have been botching. How has nobody like figured that out and nobody told y'all? And specifically, we're it's about AAA games. That's Xbox troubled development. It's with AAA games, and you could say what you want. Those are the game that matters the most. That's a fact. Don't, because every time they'd be like, well, what about Grounded? Well, what about Pentiment? Well, what about this? Like, bro, they're $1 trillion company, and they're making games like they're some startup indie company.
yeah.
N- that shouldn't be how it works. Yeah, yeah. Sure, you could say Hi-Fi Rush. Once again, consistent AAA games. That's what mattered the most, and that's what they got to get done.
Yeah, and it's like they can bring up those games, but then like at the same time, I can bring up Crackdown 3 or Bleeding Edge or Recore or Quantum Break or like the list goes on and on. And then also so like what we were just talking about as well. It's like my thing is that like this whole situation with Redfall happened, and now it's like, but now you guys also want to take on Activision Blizzard, the king, So it's just like I don't see
Yeah,
how
that's why we
like
had hesitation from the get go.
yeah. So I just it just seems like it's just too much on like it would be too much on anyone's plate to take on now like a whole other publisher when internally you're not even getting all your ducks in a row. So yeah, that's my whole thing with that. But yeah, well, what about you, man? What's your kind of thoughts on the whole Phil Spencer interview?
You guys have to trust him. Games are coming. That's all I'm gonna say, man. No, honestly, I mean, I'll be honest. I didn't. Macho kind of just debriefed me on what the interview was like. I saw clips of it, but I didn't really watch the interview. And honestly, I mean, from what Macho says and from what it seems like he said, it doesn't. it's like BG says, you can't really. There's certain things you just don't. That's why marketing exists, because to avoid stuff like this, to avoid putting your foot in your mouth, and you don't, as a company, you don't owe anyone anything. You don't owe honesty. You just owe to make a good product. To just make the dang good product. But you're not. You're simply. It's like Stan Edgar would say in The Boys. You're simply bad product. You know. And they're looking at Sony and Nintendo. It's like Macho and I discuss how just stick to your lane and do what you do best. You know, they talk about Game Pass. The fan base loves the Game Pass, and just focus on that. Don't. I guess we're not focusing on just doing good exclusives and doing good first party exclusives. We're just focusing on marketing this subscription platform that appears to be, you know, the quote unquote best deal in gaming or whatever the hell it is. Uh, then just do that. You have an audience for that. Do what you do best. But it's like to BG's point, yeah, like you're a $1 trillion company, and you're not putting in the effort that these other companies that make less money than you are putting, and they're putting a more consistent line of first party titles. I mean, for God's sake, you don't need. You have a powerful console to take advantage of. Take advantage of, you know, things like the quick resume and all these things that make multiple games are good and make people jump back and forth. It's baffling that the most lucrative out of the three is struggling the most in pumping out games, and that should be the energy. It should be, I am flabbergasted that with that much money you don't have the capacity to put out these games. But don't, somehow people are like, oh no, at least they make money. Why are you rooting for them for that? That's not. That's to I think, I don't know who it was that shared the clip, but I think it was Colin Moriarty who was saying, like, why are people being like corporate cheerleaders? Like, that's not why you have an Xbox. You don't have an Xbox to say, yeah, I gave them money. Now they have more money. No, you want to play games. The reason Hi-Fi Rush was so successful because it's a damn good game.
Yeah.
It's not because it's an Xbox game. It's because it's a good game and it happens to be on Xbox. It's not the console that makes the game. It's the game that makes the console.
Yeah.
So if I have an excuse to play this game on a console, I'm gonna do it. But it has to be good. You know,
Yeah,
you can say that Nintendo, you know, they prey on nostalgia, they do whatever, they make damn great games and they hold up years and years and years. You can say that PlayStation has just third person, you know, cinematic yeah, but those third person cinematic experiences are selling like hotcakes because they're damn good. You know?
Yeah, I just want to be
What do you
clear.
have?
I just want to be clear too. Like, I thought Xbox was running like this generation, like from the get go. Like, did really good with their marketing beats. They were getting the fan base excited. They were getting me excited, right? Just being longtime PlayStation, Nintendo gamer. More it's Final Fantasy Square Enix stuff. You guys know that, but just the fact that, like, oh yeah, like maybe this is the time I'll get an Xbox console. Like, really get invested into that ecosystem because they seem to be firing on all cylinders. And
Yeah,
then it's
they're great at lying.
it's falling flat on their face, and it sucks to see that because it's just because they had such a good thing going, and honestly, if they were hitting all these cylinders, they were back to back AAA bangers, right? They would probably be smoking Sony right now because they have Game Pass on top of all like these great games you could play on their console that aren't running like dog water or have like a bad mission structure at like Redfall or uninspired mission structure rather, like Redfall or anything like that. So yeah, it's kind of baffling to see if they were hitting on all cylinders, and yeah, they would have been absolutely been more competitive, but they're not. And people want us to compare Redfall to Forspoken. I feel like it's a bit of a strawman argument. I get it, Forspoken. It's not like I don't think Forspoken's a great game. I don't think it's even a good game, but it's at least there's something in there for people to attach to, whether it be like the magic powers or whatever. And I guess you could say the same thing for Redfall, but at this point in time, Forspoken is laying a lot more groundwork with its hardcore fans than Redfall is. So then people are just playing it and then dropping it, which, you know, it's not good to see.
This kind of moves into, I guess, the pressure that Starfield now has on its shoulders.
More, because
BG,
it already had pressure.
BG, what's your sort of like confidence level in in that game to be able to deliver for the platform because it needs to be. I feel like it needs to be that God of War sort of Zelda level type of game for Xbox, right?
I don't think. I mean, I think it'll get in the 80s. I don't think it'll be like an absolute disaster that Redfall is or anything like that.
Yeah,
But I think it'll get in the 80s. I don't think it'll. I think it'll be a moderately polished. I don't think it's going to be the most polished game, but it'll be properly polished, right? It won't be, um, and I don't think it'll be like this technical perfection like other games are. But I don't think it's going to be the same buggy thing that Bethesda has kind of gotten their nickname by, right?
yeah,
I don't think it's nothing like that. But I just don't see it being this game that gameplay wise just like really amazes people. I just don't see that. Like I kind of feel like games like this, I don't feel like games like Starfield, what it is, has actually evolved well with the times and what gamers really care about that much. Like, okay, the people say it's Skyrim in space or Fallout in space. I just don't know if like those games really aged well, like if that's what this game is gonna be. Like it like even if it's the best version of those games, I still feel like that's not really some amazing product that people are gonna be blown away by. And they just talk about how ambitious it is and the scale of it. I just don't believe that stuff, man. I just don't. I think there's gonna be a lot of shortcomings in specific areas of that game. It could be, I don't know, the amount of content, the number of planets, or just uh, just the substance of it. I don't know if this game is going to necessarily have like a story.
mhm,
Um, it's going to may have a narrative, but yeah, just gameplay wise and story wise, definitely not visuals. We know they're not going for visuals, which is okay. Yeah,
yeah,
the presentation is not going to like amaze anybody at how good the game looks. Okay, fine. But for games like that, you have to make the gameplay like this amazing product, and I just don't think it's going to be that. I just think it's going to be an a good game. I don't think it's going to be genre defying. I don't think it's going to put people on notice of no. I just think it's going to be kind of like another good game.
yeah. I feel like I agree. Like the whole talk about, the scale and how many planets there are, like that stuff doesn't really interest me. Like that's not gonna make that game good for me. Like I need because like Skyrim and Fallout 4 are like barely RPGs and like gameplay wise. So like for Starfield, for that game to be good, like I need that game to be like a true and honest like RPG, like their last two games just weren't. Um, the gunplay in Fallout 4 is decent. It's definitely a big step up in from what Fallout 3 in New Vegas was. So like you would think that they would improve on that for Starfield. But then again, it's like you saw the gameplay. It's like it just looked okay. Um, but yeah, moving on to the rest of the panel, Macho, what do you in terms of confidence for Starfield? Do you kind of have like a similar opinion, or how are you feeling about that game in general?
Yeah, I agree in the sense that I don't think it's going to be genre defining or this masterpiece from Bethesda. And this is from coming from the background. I'm not really big on BGS games in general. I mean, I love New Vegas, but that's just about the only game from. That's not even BGS. So that was the Obsidian developers.
Yeah,
So so I can't really say much on the fact that I played Fallout 4 and I dropped it. So a little bit of background on that for my perspective here, but I think I don't think it's gonna be this match. I think this groundbreaking game from Bethesda. I think it's gonna be sort of a new franchise for them, and I mainly think that because it doesn't need to be a masterpiece. I think it needs to just hit the marks it needs to hit for Xbox fans and for general audience. It needs its I took an arrow to the knee moment, you know. And that could be with like the latest description that came for the ratings or whatever about jetpack sex or whatever. Like a lot of that weird stuff that's going to be in this game.
What?
Oh, now I got him excited. Fuck.
No, I'm confused. I am not excited.
Yeah, so the ESRB just kind of came out with the description for Starfield, and one of the things it lists is like jetpack sex from a line of dialogue from a character or something like that. So it's kind of like that weird, cringy writing that's going to be in this game. I think it's going to take off for it, or at least I hope so they can see some sort of success with it. But I think it's gonna really rely on on those really one-liners that people are just gonna keep carrying that turn into memes. I've actually got people playing it. So yeah, I mean, I don't think it's gonna be the savior. I think it's gonna be the first domino for Xbox's games that you will hope will do and be really good, following after it. But yeah, I don't think it's gonna be like the savior or anything like that. No, it needs to rely on like really one or two common denominators that worked with Skyrim and worked with a couple of the Bethesda games that are going to carry success, in my opinion.
Walt, what about you, man?
This is a game that, as time has gone by, the less hope I have for it. And I feel
that's wild coming from
more-
you because you're really hyped for it, man.
I was, but then the Redfall thing happened, and now I know that they are even more pressure. I hope they don't make any stupid decisions, and they half baked the game. Because I told Macho this, that one of my dream games that came into fruition, and it is what I look for in a sci-fi game, is No Man's Sky. Now, back then, horrible when it first came out, but No Man's Sky really fulfilled a lot of the what I was looking for in a sci-fi game, going from planet to planet, exploring new races of aliens and whatever. And I think what Starfield is, to BG's point, I don't look for anything impressive, graphically. If anything, I mean, look at Tears of the Kingdom. It's not a graphically impressive game, but it's a good game. It has its own charm. It's just like Bethesda games have. They have the like the clunkiness, the kind of like sometimes awkward interactions between NPCs, and it looks funny, but it doesn't look off-putting or low quality. I just hope that this game doesn't feel bloated, it doesn't feel empty, and it doesn't feel repetitive. And I think that although there might be repetition to some of its core gameplay loops, I hope it feels varied enough to where I am not dreading going to the next planet over because it's just going to be another fire planet with the same ores that I have to mine. I think that with this game, it's sounding like the grind has to be enjoyable, because it sounds like there's going to be grind in this game. A lot of it. If you're going to want to build these ships and you're going to want to have these great selection of weapons and go and mine, and I don't know. Make it a sci-fi game. Don't make it a tedious, micromanaging, like the No Man's Sky when it first came out. You had to really figure out, how am I gonna place these ores into my ship, because I barely have any space. I don't have the required modules for this. You don't have all these things that you have to walk distances for. So I just don't want it to be bloated. Am I hyped for it? I am hyped, but I am also very, very worried, because if it doesn't work, I'm not worried for Xbox. I'm just worried for me, because I want a good sci-fi game. I really do. And the last time I played a great sci-fi game was not even a new game. It was Mass Effect that I replayed some time ago. So I don't know, man. Well, if anything, I played Tales of Horizon. That's kind of a sci-fi game, but it's not the type of sci-fi game that this is aspiring to be. So I don't know, man. I'm looking forward to it. Is it positive or negative? I really don't know. I just cannot wait for that week for embargoes to lift and get those reviews to see where I do, if it goes to the 80s, I don't mind that. That's kind of expected. If it goes to the 70s, I still might consider it depending on how the gameplay looks. If it gets down to a 60, that's no for me. That's a skip.
There's no way it's gonna be lower than like an 80.
Hey man, you said the same thing about Arcane and Redfall, man.
I did not say that about Redfall.
You said in those DMs, man, we're going over the meta scores, and you're like, "There's no way this dude's gonna hit below 75." They're at 57 right now.
And it's Arcane. And you know, contrary to your favorite Arcane game, mine's Prey, and they promise with Redfall diversity and different approaches to situations. BS. BS.
I just would be very shocked if it's lower than an 80.
I mean, I agree with you. I'm full on board with you. I don't think this game's hitting below like an 83, but
Yeah.
but
At the very least, a 79. This is me. Like I want to disappoint. I don't want to disappoint myself. This is why I'm telling myself it's gonna be horrible. Because then if there's an 80 and it's not a 79, I'm like, oh man, I feel good.
classic Walt. Classic
Yeah, man.
Walt.
My expectations have to be on the floor. That way I don't get disappointed. That's why when Dead Island 1 came out, I played the shit out of it. It had 4s and 3s all around, but I loved the hell out of that game. Like,
That's
but
fair.
it's because I didn't have expectations. Since then I do. But what other game has set expectations for Starfield?
Yeah.
It's No Man's Sky. That's the only game I can think about because it has the same philosophy behind it. Planets and exploring and sci-fi and settlements and ships
Well, I think it's
and
because the game was goddamn revealed in 2018, so it's literally had like what almost half a decade of expectations, just like building and building. At some point, you just got to put the game out, man. You know, so yeah, it's
yeah,
just too much expectations just building for,
too
and
much.
and it's the same thing with Elder Scrolls 6, man. It's gonna be the same thing with that. Um,
Mhm.
Same
but
thing with Persona 6 too. That flop with 5,
Listen,
man. That's
listen,
wild.
man. Listen, Soul Hackers 2, with Soul Hackers 2, the bar is not that high, okay? So, Soul Hackers 2 wasn't it. So Persona 6, it's good. It's good.
No, no worries.
It'll be good.
before we wrap up this topic and then the podcast, BJ, is there anything else you wanted to touch on in terms of like the whole Phil Spencer interview slash Redfall? Is there any like Xbox Game Studios game specifically that you're really looking forward to?
At this point, did I have anything I'm looking forward to? Not really that I can think of. I'm looking forward to the showcase to see what they show, but you know, expectations are low. Phil shouldn't have said half that stuff. You know, he said in that interview, people don't need to sell. You don't need people to sell their PS5s. You just need people to buy an Xbox. So he was creating these scenarios in which nobody has to meet. You know,
Yeah.
so it's like you can gain market share without anybody selling their PS5s. You know, there's such a thing as like a proud or a graceful third place. Like if you still had really good games consistently, but you were in third place, nobody's saying anything to you. Like yeah, there would still be console wars are always going to happen. But
Yeah.
if you were still putting out good games, like technically, you know, like Nintendo kind of like made the generations confusing because the Wii U died so quickly.
Mhm.
But like like Nintendo is technically selling the most right now. PlayStation is well, that was the PS4 because Switch and PS4 that was the same generation. Either way, what I'm saying is like they were one was behind each other, but both were doing really well.
Yeah.
So nobody made fun of either one as like some type of horrific failure. Xbox is the only failure in any of these situations because you're the only one doing bad. You could be second place or third place and still be doing really well. So this scenario that he makes up for himself that we have to do this and we have to do this. No, you don't have to. You don't have to do any of that. You could just be really good. And then since they've been losing at trying to beat Nintendo or PlayStation for a long time, they decided, okay, we're gonna move the goalpost. They made their own goalpost, and then they still couldn't score. That's what
Exactly.
they did. And it's like, okay, so you changed the definition of winning, and then you're not even succeeding at that. So it's like, bruh, y'all are failing both ways and you even changed the way to win. So it's you got to start doing something.
I mean, he even talked about that in the interview that like, hey, we're not in the business of consoling Sony or Nintendo, so we basically had to go off and do like our own thing that
Mhm.
worked for us because we obviously weren't going to beat Sony and Nintendo in the whole like traditional way, so we had to go off and do Game Pass, and yeah, um,
Yep.
yeah, and then it's also interesting because like wasn't Xbox in third place during like the original Xbox era, but they were still putting out like pretty good
Yeah.
games, right? So like,
Mhm.
yeah, and it's just like that was also a time period where you owned probably like all three of those consoles because they were all putting out really good games. So yeah, that whole comment about like selling PS5s is like just so weird, man.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know if they're ever gonna get back to like that 360 era, but you would hope that that was something to aspire to because man, there was nothing like that era, right?
yeah,
Like the birth of online connecting with people online, grouping up in parties, the third party and first party Xbox had out the gate with Fable, Gears of War, Mass Effect, BioShock. Like there's nothing else like that. And I think if they fought that hard, if they will fight now the way they fought back then, we would be, we would be flooded with more than enough games to play. I mean, we are now, but like, it'll just be a different beast if they're on their A game.
yeah. But yeah, man. I think we kind of beat that topic to death. Um, that's probably gonna do it for the podcast today for DualShock and Sense episode 99. Before we get out of here, want to remind everyone to please go ahead and like the podcast and share it out and consider subscribing, man. Appreciate everyone in the chat. Um, so yeah, we're gonna start with these outros. BG, thanks for hopping on, man. We really appreciate it. Go ahead and plug whatever you want, man.
Yeah, appreciate the invite. Weapon Wheel Podcast is on Sundays, 5:45. Check out my channel, Broken Games HDR. Yeah, that's it. I'm on Twitter, all that good stuff.
Cool, cool. Appreciate that. Macho.
Yeah, man. Again, once again, thank you to BG for joining. It was just a shot in the dark to see if he would join our pod for our 99th episode, and there's a better way to kick it off than to have an icon, game, the podcast gaming legend here. But yeah, thank you, man, for joining us and for chopping it up. But yeah, man, we're gonna be playing a bunch of Zelda and maybe Change of Paradise and Diablo 4. We'll see how it goes. It's gonna be a fun weekend. Got Monday off, so it's gonna be just gaming the entire weekend and having fun with that, man. But yeah, again, thank you for everyone for joining in, liking the podcast at 18 likes. Much appreciated to everybody that did that and subscribed to the channel. So shout out to y'all.
Well, what about you, man? You got anything going on this week?
This week, well, I mean, let me not be the root one. And also, I'm gonna go ahead and thank you, BG, that my return to the podcast also featured you, and it feels good. This was a good podcast. I feel that. I mean, this shouldn't be the last time. You know, maybe in the future, if there's another SOCOM announced or another heavily
Hopefully.
controversial multiplayer game we can dissect here, we love to have you on again.
Hmm.
Um, but this week I got Zelda, baby. I got a lot of Zelda. I'm excited, and I'm gonna watch hopefully Evil Dead Rise, which I haven't seen. It's been out for a minute. Uh, I need my gore fix.
It's a good, it's a damn good movie, man. Damn good movie. You like it?
Yeah, it's I need my creepy factor refilled. So I'll be doing that, man. And trying to see if we can get Soul to play multiplayer game with us sometime because he keeps avoiding us because he's such a introvert, you know? He's such a silly goose that way. We appreciate you, Soul. We want you with us, man.
Yeah,
You're our friend.
I'm not trying to play that bum ass Strangers of Paradise with y'all.
Yeah? Yeah,
Yeah.
play Diablo then. You like it, what are you? You're the connoisseur of enemy waifus? She not might be an anime waifu, but she's a waifu. You're into Lilith, aren't you?
I already played the beta, man, so I'm just I'm gonna wait until the full release, so I'm good.
Oh, so you are playing. Okay. Macho's also playing it, and we'll be playing. All right, well, I'll hop on when it comes out.
Yeah, actually, so I forgot to tell you that I actually pre-ordered Diablo 4 the other day, and
Yes,
yeah, man.
sir.
So we're ready to go.
Mm.
Yeah, we're ready for that demon goodness.
Yeah, as for me, I'm gonna be playing more Wasteland 3 for the foreseeable future. I guess probably until Diablo comes out. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much it for me. So yeah, once again, want to thank everyone who tuned in and subscribed. We really appreciate that. Once again, thank you, BG, for joining. And we will see you guys next time for DualShock and Sense episode 100. Until then, peace out.